chat. Hello. Okay, not gonna lie, I was trying to check my audio and then I realized that my audio was muted. There it is, okay. I'm a little loud, so I'm gonna move my mic away. Okay, we're finishing our life today because I didn't want to go into the new year with a half-finished dating game. Hey up, Mad Gav. Hello, hello. Nice to see you. I hope you're well. I will wait for a little bit. I need to do something quickly anyways. I'm just praying that I don't do what I did the other stream and click on a thing when I meant to click on the end, and then we go on for another 2 hours. It was funny though. It was very funny. Yeah. I hope you're all well. My little boy has come out to say hello. Oh, and he's leaving. Okay. Bye-bye. Okay, well, there goes IRL Blaze. Let me know if audio is, okay and everything, by the way. Pretty please. So, oh no. Oh, he's good. Okay. Thank you, thank you. Wait, who lied to you about your flight being canceled? What? What the heck? Your brother? Oh no! You don't know, that sounds like a brotherly thing to do. He's a bitch. Oh, a bad brother. Okay, okay. Okay. I have finished my thing, so what do I say? We get right into it. Yes, yes, I am finishing the game today. Yeah. Okay, this is all the same. Yes, sir. No, I don't want to customize Cove. Cove's middle initiative. Okay. Punsy Poo, hello, welcome to the stream. Hello, hello. Time for another- No. Okay. No, do I- See, every time I say, well, I hope that this- I'm thinking that the stream's gonna be about this long. I go for like 7 hours longer than that. Oh, Vienna. Okay, hello, Vienna. Hello, hello. Nice to see you. I hope you're well. What? Yeah. Okay, I'll just start with the rundown. We are Cloud Cloudron of the Cloudron family. We have 2 moms. We have an older sister named Lizzie. The love interest is Cove, who, if I remember correctly, is officially our boyfriend. What else is there? We're friends with Miranda and Terry. Terry with an I, not our Terry, different Terry. I think that's pretty much the most important stuff. Last stage, we just graduated high school. Oh yeah, we live in California, apparently. That's another thing. So, the Terry multiverse. Okay. So I'm probably gonna be taking pauses every now and then to drink water because I don't know if you can hear it. You might be able to, but like I don't the Terryverse. Oh Jesus. I don't think I'm sick. My voice is just a little bit like stuffy, if that makes sense. But anyways, it's not like reading for 3 or however many hours straight is gonna, you know, negatively impact that at all. What? No. Anyways. I am. You as well, chat. You as well. And so, your days growing up in the loving cradle of Sunset Bird came to an end. In the years that passed since graduation, you'd moved out of your childhood home and made your own way in the world. That included coming into your identity. Those you knew and loved were in full support of it. Since then, you'd been called she, her by everyone. And you... Oh! 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 Okay, okay. We're gonna live with a pet, but... do we live with Cove? Chat, what do you think? I think I might leave this one up to you. Again, Cove is our official boyfriend at this point. Okay. Well, yeah, okay, maybe. I say this as I'm home by myself with my single cat. It's fine. And you... Oh. Okay, well, if we're going down the content creator route, I suppose I have a business of my own. In the... gaming... I didn't think there was actually gonna be a gaming industry one. Okay. Your family members went through the same kinds of leaps into independence. Liz and Lee, Lee's our cousin, by the way, both eventually earned degrees and started fantastic careers in new towns. But your mom's and Cove's father still lived on the same street as they had for all those years before. It was comforting to you that there were some things that remained in the old neighborhood. And despite the ever-changing reality of your adult life, your friends were still your friends. Though, of course, things weren't exactly the same for them either. Very recently... Never mind, it is our Terry! Very recently, Terry publicly came out as a man and switched the spelling of his name to use a Y instead of an I. Let's go, Terry! Let's go! The two of you were able to share your experiences and really support each other in taking steps towards being authentic to who you were. He also confessed his love for Miranda. Let's go! I said it last time. I said it. They needed to... Yeah. Oh my god, this is so nice. He also confessed his love for Miranda, which he excitedly reciprocated. They moved in together recently in the city out past Sunset Bird. Derek was as busy as always. That's another friend. But doing well. He always made an effort to keep in touch, and you even saw each other in person occasionally. One person who did disappear into the shuffle of memories inside your mind was Baxter. After his vacation in Sunset Bird one year, he was just gone. You had never truly counted him as a close friend, though. And then there's what became of the sad little boy you grew up with, Cove Holden. Your deep affection for him was something that continued to last unabated over the years. We'll do this. yeah, for context, we didn't like Baxter. He was an odd fella. Well, I'll say we lived close by. No, yeah, Magab was referring to Baxter. He truly thrived in his continued efforts of cultivating loving and supporting relationships with his family and friends. His personality had changed, becoming more reserved, though not at all unkind. Cove was a gentle, loyal, considerate man who took the lessons he'd learned over the years to treat the people around him with patience and understanding. When Cove eventually developed a picture of the future he wanted to have as an adult, you could see where he was coming from based on his past interest. Cove decided against pursuing a degree and focused fully on building up a career. He got a small business of his own teaching surf lessons, and he still volunteered with Orca when his workload allowed it. Yes, this is... What is it? So... The first stage we were 8, the second stage we were 13. The third stage we just turned 18. So I'm gonna assume now we're... What is that, a 5-year gap between each one? I assume now we're like 23. Or something like that. That's a good question. I'm going to keep my mouth shut and we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. As an adult, Cove was also able to recognize and have diagnosed that he was on the autism spectrum. Let's go! It was something that hadn't been noticed by his doctors as a child, but he was still the same Cove he always was to you, and he was just as glad to understand himself better. Braid his beard. It thrilled you to see how happy and successful he'd grown up to be. On the whole, life continued its steady beat forward, and you all went with it down the paths you chose. Yeah, let's go! It was strange and wonderful. But no matter how old you got, how far you roamed, or how long you were away, the home you had in Sunset Bird still called you back eventually. Oh. So, I just remember the, Cove be like, look at me, the bad bitch I pulled by being autistic. The car rumbled down the highway. You had started to zone out when a truck in the left lane loudly zoomed past. Your driver didn't remark on it, just like anything else this trip. You went back to staring out the window, letting the scenery pass you by. Who's driving? What? Vroom. You did appreciate the spacious backseat of your ride. You hadn't known exactly when you would be coming in, so you had decided to use a ride app rather than ask your mom. Oh, okay. It's just a random Uber, okay. It had turned out to be a convenient choice. You looked forward to surprising your parents at the door. You smiled at the thought of their faces lighting up. Luckily, this hadn't been that big of a trip for you. You lived close enough that the travel hadn't turned into a big production. However, that didn't make the occasion mundane. For once, your moms had decided to have a modest celebration dinner for their anniversary! Unlike when you were growing up and they preferred not to make a big deal out of it, this year they were comfortable having a party. Aww. So, bless you? As time went on, they had found being the center of attention easier to handle. You were happy to see it. With this going on, there was no way that either you or Liz would make your mom's anniversary. Both of you made plans to come back home for it. You didn't hear from Liz about her exact schedule, but you hadn't shared yours either. Bless you again? Question mark? It reminded you of when you were kids and both knew to show up for dinner, but didn't keep each other in the loop for each other's pre-dinner plans. This was the same concept, after all. You're not. No. Some things stayed the same, and yet it was definitely different from when you would see your older sister every day and knew sort of what she was doing, anyways. From us. Wait. Definitely different from when you would see your sister every day and sort of knew what she was doing, anyways, from osmosis. Today you had no idea. I'm gonna pretend like I know what that means. Things were always changing. You mused on how at times it was hard to believe you didn't live with your parents anymore, and yet you also couldn't imagine going back and living as a kid under their rules. The rest of the drive flew by. Your silent driver provided a smooth ride. No sharp turns or hard stops jostled you out of your own head. Your thoughts turned from introspective to observant. The landscape passing by became more and more familiar. You frequently recognized the landmarks that dotted the area. A grin came to your face as you passed the now entering sign for Sunset Bird. Excitement built within you. You were really here! You were doing this! Your driver turned off on a street and you realized that their map program was taking you the way home that Ma preferred. usually would have used the other side street to pass by the beach. In no time at all, the car had gone through the whole of town and pulled in front of your mom's condo. The car slowed to a stop and parked. What? I mean, this is the same CG that was used when it was our mom's car. So, with the buzz of the highway gone, you realized that you could hear the familiar sound of the waves. The air smelled like salt, and a rush of childhood memories flooded back. You started to gather your things and humming to yourself once more about how happy your moms would be to see you. After that, you notify everyone else that you'd made the trip safely. No! They were a loving family. Please. I hope that's not the case. No, I walk into the door and they're like, we raised you so well, and you became a streamer? You wasted your life being a streamer! You pulled over your suitcase from the other seat and yanked at your bag from down near your feet. Tap, tap. You startled at the sudden sound of tapping on glass. It caused you to pause. Did you really hear what you thought you did? You weren't entirely sure because you soon heard something else, the window on the opposite side of the car rolling down. It confused you until you put it together, that despite the driver's silence, you weren't actually alone in this car. The driver must have pressed the button. Someone had to be there. Wait, what? You turn your head to face the now open window. It's him! It's the boy! Also, I wouldn't say lazy to make new art. I mean, like, it takes a lot to make even a single, like, CG. So, I mean, reusing it makes a lot of sense. You're shaking like a maraca. Oh, look at his little, like... Oh my god. Hello. There he was, leaning his arms across the window, your beloved Cove Holden. He beamed at you with one of his precious open smiles. Hey, Cloud. Welcome home. I was wondering how long I'd have to stand out here for you to make it. It's been a while, you know. Aw. I'm gonna scream. He laughed at your reaction. You could see the car's driver raise an eyebrow from the rearview mirror, but didn't let it stop you. He then gripped the top of the car door and pushed half his torso through the opening. That was enough to make the driver break their silence with a sharp "Hey!" Cove did not seem to notice and continue climbing. Cove! Cove did not seem to notice and continued climbing in through the window. He pushed one hand down into the middle seat to prop his dangling body up. He used his other hand to caress your cheek as he leaned in as close as he could. I missed you, huh? I'll kiss him on the forehead. Bro really couldn't even wait to open the door. He just went, well. You bent to the side and gently pressed a kiss to his forehead. The arm he was balanced on shook. He struggled not to come crashing down from his precarious position. However, his sappy grin was infectious. The two of you shared each other's happiness. You shifted back just a little to get a better view of his face. Yeah, Cove was like half in the window. I really should have expected this, you and your windows. I promise this was unplanned. I know, still doesn't make a difference. Cove's smile turned awkward as his arm started to bend lower, causing his body to slide downwards with it. He turned his head to the driver.
Sorry,
I'm always causing trouble in this neighborhood. Cove shifted around some more and squirmed back the way he came. After he had successfully pushed off the window and landed on the pavement with a thump, you opened your car door. You threaded your arms through the various straps of your bags and climbed out. Cove took a few long strides around the back of the car and quickly met you on your side. Cove stood in front of you, and it struck you that the two of you were back in Sunset Bird, reunited once again on this street. I gave him a friendly punch. Hey, boyfriend, it's been a while. Punch. Or no, you know, no, all these options are sweet. I'm gonna hug. Sure, I'm still holding my bags. Why not? It was a little difficult to launch yourself at Cove with all your luggage in tow, but you pushed through. Cove let out a little oof as he caught you and Bag swung around to clobber him in the back. Both of you had to maneuver around the assorted cases weighing you down. Ko snorted as your baggage once again hit his side. When you were situated, he leaned back on the balls of his heels and fully lifted you off the ground. Hey, Cove, gives you black eye. His goofy grin let you know just how much he was enjoying your enthusiastic embrace. He didn't have a problem holding you up. His especially large height. Okay, listen. Gabe, you don't need to take every opportunity to call me short. Okay, listen. Height is subjective. Okay, I don't think I'm that. With one last swing, he let you back down. You were really ecstatic to be around him again, and absolutely thrilled it was here in this town where you were together. Ow! Hi, Sprix. Nice to see you. I hope the $20 was worth it. Cove's schedule had let him come up earlier than you. He only arrived the evening before, however, and secured the hotel room. Even though you didn't live far from each other and still managed to see Cove often, it felt like it had been way too long since your last meeting. Oh! You idly shifted your luggage, then it struck you that you were... Oh, that you were short. I thought that said you were the short one. I was like, fucking obviously. Yes, yeah, okay.
I like to make fun of the streamer. The streamer is short.
You got out in such a hurry, it was left behind. You reached back into the car to pull it out. Coasted aside as you made a dash for the door. You shouldered the small bag and felt relief that you would be able to brush your teeth tonight. Got everything this time? You stood up straight, everything truly gathered up and out of the car. You gave the backseat one last glance and then nodded. Cove shut the door after you had moved out of the way. The two of you stepped off the street to give the driver some room. Cove waved. Sorry again. The driver said nothing and drove off. Oh, wait. Maybe... Actually, no, I agree with that. Yeah. Maybe it's just like a printed design or something. With the road clear, you let your gaze drift across the neighborhood that you had known forever. It was such a small place to spend so many days. You were flooded with memories of going up and down the street during every stage of your life. Being a little kid, following your big sister to the playground, becoming a teen and staying out later, and growing into an adult who left their parents' house behind to be independent. You could feel the summer sun on your skin from all the times you'd headed out to the beach. I can feel the back of my throat. Oh god. Apologies if it takes me a bit to read. You saw the same surroundings that you as a young adult did when leaving the home. It was hard to quantify the amount of history you had here. And now, you are back. Oh god, I'm back in California! Aw, shit. Despite taking in the neighborhood again, you never lost awareness of Cove's presence. From the corner of your eye, seeing him there was a very familiar sight as well. So many of your memories included him. Elle can't read. Okay. Now listen here, okay? I was gonna say something and then my mind just didn't supply anything. Spriggs, shut up. Your mind drifted from the neighborhood itself to the person who used to live there. You couldn't help the feeling of nostalgia. You still remembered his face, his voice, the scar on his arm from the days long gone. He had changed so much since you had first met him. Yet, even with those changes, he was always recognizable. He was familiar like the sky was, in the way you knew the sea. Every day, they may appear different, but they're still an inextricable part of life. It was the world with help from Mr. Holden and his ill-thought $20 bill that brought you two together to begin with, but the two of you had chosen each other. You had never let your interactions fade. You had decided to nurture your relationship into what it was. And you would continue to keep Cove close into all the rest of your adult years. Cove was the partner you wanted for life. You couldn't be more grateful to call him your boyfriend. It would be impossible to imagine life without him. Cove noticed you staring at him after a while and smiled with his eyebrows rising in curiosity. He was very transparent in his question if there was something you wanted to say. You shook your head and returned him a soft expression. You'd let yourself get carried away in a tide of memories, but now it was time to focus on the present. Ready to go see my mom's? Cove nodded and then pointed at all your luggage bundled around your legs. Can I help you with any of that? No, you dropped them.
No, it's like carrying in all my groceries in one go. I can do it.
Fine.
Well, fine. Who am I to get in the way of your task? You smirked at your seriousness and something that was adamantly ridiculous. The bag situation resolved, the two of you strolled over to the Cloudron residence's door.
Mother's, yeah.
You started to pat your pockets instinctively, only to realize that you no longer carried a key to the house. Your eyes scanned the entryway, a little lost, only to spy the doorbell. The thought of having to ring it felt super weird. As you pressed the inconveniently placed button on the side wall, you remember that no matter how much this place would always be home to you, it wasn't where you lived. Being back here was like putting on a uniform after you quit the store where it came from. It had remained the same, but your circumstances had changed. Cove shifted on his feet awkwardly, obviously also thrown about you being stuck out here, keyless. You heard muffled voices and shuffling around from inside. Your heartbeat sped up in anticipation. The door swung open and there was your mom's smiling face. She immediately brained at seeing you standing there. Oh! They're aging! I'm so sad. I'm gonna cry. Well. Mom twisted her head back and gave a shout down the hall. Lonnie, guess who's here? There were more distant noises, no doubt Ma getting up from wherever she was to come see. Her high-spirited words rang out clearly. I hope it's one of my children! You know what? Dang it! I should have just went up to the window of my old bedroom. Also, oh, I love her earrings. Mom snickered, still holding the door only half open to hide you for a little longer. Cove flushed as if suddenly realizing that he was going to be present for your mom's enthusiastic welcoming of you. You smiled to reassure him that he wasn't intruding. Ma finally reached the door and peered over Mom's shoulder. Oh, I love them. Moms, I want to give you hugs. It is! Hello, Cloud. She gave you a once-over, patting the tops of your shoulders and moving down the sides of your arms before she nodded in satisfaction that you were in one piece.
How sweet.
This is a wonderful surprise. Ma inclined her head to Cove next, not leaving him out either. Hello, sweetie. You count as one of my kids at this point anyways. I have doubled the surprise today. Oh, yeah. Hug my PC? I could try. You soared at your mom's greetings. They never changed. Cove bashfully waved at them. He hadn't relaxed fully, but he had settled down at their welcome. Well, don't just stand out there. Come on in. Your mom moved aside and held the door open for you, gesturing for you to enter. You stepped into the living room. It was comfortable and cool. Cove was a half step behind you, his eyes on a new painting your mom's must have added since the last time you were here. What are these, and can I have one? They look delicious. I want bread. I love bread. Oh my god. Things were mostly the same, but there were more decorations since you had seen the house last. Mom may have gotten the urge for some interior designing again. It struck you how odd it was to be the guest, only observing their choices for the living space here, rather than a full-time occupant. Ma came up in front of you, excitement in her eyes. I'm so glad you're here.
That's fine.
You know, your mom and I would have been happy to pick you up, but you're self-sufficient and responsible. That's okay. What matters is that you arrived safely. Mom appeared at her side with a nod. Welcome back, kiddos. You still appreciated that your parents respected you as an adult, even if Mom still called you kiddo. You figured long ago that you'd always be her kiddo, no matter how grown you became. It was part of the whole parent-child deal with her. Hug. Hug. You took another step forward and pulled Mom and Ma into a great big hug, squeezing them tight. Their arms wrapped around you in return, and you could feel their love for you in their embrace. I wanted to surprise you. Aw, well, you succeeded. Your timing was lovely. It's always nice when I'm able to come by. Your mom has giggled, pleased. I hope you've both been doing well. Is everything set up for your anniversary dinner?
No problem.
We're happy to help if there's something we can do. We've been plenty fine. It's been a little quiet, but that's not a bad thing. Mom placed her arm around Ma's shoulder and gave her a side hug.
Don't worry about
about it.
Don't worry about the party. We're just planning to eat at the Cypress. Nothing fancy. Which is kind of a funny thing to say about a pretty fancy country club. Second. I missed the second. Magab, you say that like I remember what any of the other options were. The biggest issue has just been making sure everyone could make it for the day. Vienna, no! Speaking of which, Liz will be arriving tonight. We're planning on picking her up later. I guess Liz isn't as grown up as Cloud. Mom snickered at her own joke, and Ma lightly elbowed her with a barely hidden grin.
Shush.
I wasn't that much of a no. Okay, listen, Liz was so much more trouble than I was, okay? Liz was so much worse. Listen, I think I was the good kid out of the two of us. As I was saying, we could drop you off wherever you're staying if you don't mind waiting for that. I'm sorry there's not space for you in the house. It's gotten crowded in those old rooms since you and Liz moved out. I don't know where all this stuff keeps coming from. Sure you don't, Pamela. It's okay. Cove already has a hotel room. Cove already has a hotel room I'm gonna be staying in anyway. Cove sent you some pictures of the place when he arrived. Stylish and roomy, it seemed very nice. Ooh. Okay. He claimed that the bed was comfortable, so you had high hopes about that. Though, mostly you were looking forward to having him next to you as you slept once again. And then your mom smiled, relieved. Kira's already here, isn't she? That's Cove's mom. She directed her question at Cove. He bobbed his head a bit to go along with his reply. Yeah, I heard she made it. She's gonna be staying with Dad while she's in town.
Oh?
Have you gone over and said hello yet? Cove chuckled self-consciously, and this time he shook his head. You raised an eyebrow since you had figured he would have taken the chance while waiting for you. Not yet. I should go do that now. I just wanted Cloud to be there too. He caught your eyes with an adoring smile. Mom laughed at that, no doubt thinking that Cove was sweet but ridiculous.
Oh, nice.
It's nice to know your priorities. Yeah. Cool. Okay, listen, if I'm gonna be honest, when I first saw them, I thought the same thing, but I was like, no, I can't think that. These are my mothers. But I get it. Cove awkwardly rubbed his arm and shifted on his feet, looking all too much like he did as a kid.
So?
Cloud, do you want to go over to my house now? That's a good idea. We won't be leaving until late evening. You heard Ma. Let's go see your parents. As fuck. Oh no! Cove perked back up, excited once more. Here, I'll take this as like a... I'll wait. That way I don't... No, not L! I shall wait. That way we don't lose anybody. Those are my knuckles cracking, by the way. You're back? Okay. Hello, welcome back. Cove perked back up, excited once more. We'll keep an eye on your things while you're out. There's no reason to be carrying all that around. You set down your bags in the living room, tucked into a corner where they wouldn't be in the way. Cove helped. Helpless, don't worry. Your moms waved the two of you off as you walked back to the entranceway. Thanks. See you soon. Hang on, I'm gonna take this as a second to drink as well. Okay, streamer's back. Oh gosh, are we having a debate? By drink I mean water. Also, I needed to cough, so I muted. You waved back and opened the front door for Cove. Jesus. With that, you were on your way to see Cove's family next. This trip put a special little pep in Cove's step as you crossed the street to his dad's house together. Your spirits were equally high. Doing this, you felt like a teen again. You had known Cove's parents for a long time now. When it came to what you called his dad... Yeah, I'll stick with the familiar Mr. Holden. Oh, Jesus. At this point, you couldn't imagine calling him anything else. Despite it being formal, it rolled off your tongue naturally. For his mom... You called her Mom 3. She always referred that even when you were just a kid, honestly, you couldn't imagine calling her anything else. Cove hopped up to the front door and didn't bother knocking. He twisted the knob and it swung open. With a grin, Cove gave you a gratified thumbs up. You shook your head in disapproval, but you both knew that you hypocritically supported his behavior. Your dad is lucky we aren't criminals. He brushed your comment aside and went right into his old home. Oh my gosh. We're having a fight in the chat. Oh lord. It's reminding me of fucking, what was it? Carbonation versus anti-carbonation gang. Mr. Holden was there, standing in his kitchen and babysitting a pan on the stove. Oh my god, I love his. I love. Yo, awesome. His head turned at the sound of footsteps, and he brightened instantly at the sight of you both. Cove matched his enthusiasm instantly. Carbonation is. If it was anyone else, you would have thought he was lighting up with a childlike joy over seeing his dad again. But since you knew what Cove was actually like as a kid, you were aware this level of happiness with Mr. Hole was definitely not equivalent to any childhood feelings of his. What? No, this is his Oh my gosh. Also, sorry, before I forget, would you like me to call you, like, Puns? Or, like, Punsy Poo? Instead of Vienna. Dad, Cove! Mr. Holland graciously pushed what he was cooking to a different burner and flipped off the heat. He rushed over to you both. Cove flew forward and met him halfway in a hug. Cove squished his eyes shut and held his dad in a tight hug. Mr. Holland soothingly rubbed his son's back. The more of an adult Cove became, the more he turned into a big daddy's boy, it seemed. Okay. Okie dokie. I missed you. Aw. I missed you too. Aw. You said It was sweet, and teasing aside, it was wonderful to see them at this place in their relationship after years of struggling to connect. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. When the hug broke, Mr. Holland hooked an arm around his son's neck. He let out a deep laugh. I still can't believe you outgrew me. Oh yeah, he is taller. I really thought I had that on him after he graduated from high school, but then he had to keep going. Chuckling, he shook his fist in mock anger. Cove ducked his head and laughed in kind. Sorry, Dad. Cove's cheeks turned pink and he averted his eyes. He was becoming bashful, so you knew he had more he wanted to say. Cove softly added. But I was raised really well. Aw. His dad's expression instantly crumbled with emotion. He sniffled. Cove put an arm around him too and tucked him into a side hug. Oh, Jesus Christ! Oh, Lord. Punzo, wait until you see Kira, his mom. You observed their little reunion fondly, happy to let them enjoy their moment. They were a perfect pair of sentimentality. Mr. Holden eventually turned his attention to you.
Hey.
Hi, Cloud. So great to see you. Can I hug him? Oh, shit. Okay, listen. Kira kinda... Anyways, he pulled away from Cove and approached you with a little wave. He was back to his cheery self. Oh, why can't I hug him? Oh. It's nice to see you. Oh, I can't hug you! Let's go!
So wait,
Listen, okay. Is it really simping if you're just appreciating the beauty of a human? Appreciating people. See, that's you went to him with your arms extended and a silent "is this okay?" question in your eyes. Mr. Holden pulled you into a big hug without second thought, and there was a quiet sniffle. I miss seeing your face around here. Thank you. Mr. Holden cleared his throat, pulling attention to himself. He crossed his arms. But before we get too carried away, it's not a real reunion yet. Kira's still in the guest suite, so I'll go get her. He eagerly bolted down the hall, and you could hear every step he took. It ended with a distinct knock. Kira, they're here.
What?
Listen. Okay, now. Perhaps I am a wee bit, just the tiniest bit of gay. It was only seconds before there was the sound of a door being yanked open. The pounding of feet hitting the wood floor grew even louder this time.
My baby.
Ah, I love her. Next to you, Cove let out a nervous laugh. His parents entered the living room, and Kira stretched her arms out wide when she spotted you both. Cove went to her easily. Oh, yeah. Yes. She held you both tightly in her arms, and you squeezed her back with nearly the same intensity. You felt loved. Cove wrapped his free arm around her too. He rested his head on top of hers and let out a happy sigh. After a moment, Kira let go and pulled back to get a better look at your faces. She surveyed every inch of them and appeared to be satisfied. You're both looking well. That's wonderful, and just what I like to see. Thanks. And hi, Mom. You look great too, Kira. One day soon, I'll let you in on my secrets. Kira winked, and you had zero doubts that she held precious knowledge to looking your best. She was stunning every time you saw her. I'd be honored. So, what's new? How have you both been? I love their outfits. Oh my god. I want his shirt. I want the shirt. Kira gave a nod for Mr. Holden to go first. Cheerfully, he waved a hand.
No worries.
Oh, same old. Still got the shop, still got my friends and family, of course, and still the most exciting thing around here is seeing who will rent that one free condo. Incredible. I always knew you were such a snore. They snickered, and you couldn't help but peek at Cove. He rolled his eyes dramatically, drawing out a few giggles from you. But the whole time, there was still a happy smile fixed on his face.
Well.
For me, things have been good. I've gotten a lot of interesting assignments lately. Oh, I recently went to Seattle, and... Oh? Kira twirled a strand of her hair shyly, and her mouth curved into a grin. Whatever she was thinking about, it made her happy. Things have still been going well with that guy from work, but it's a little early to bring him all the way out to California to meet the family. Cove crossed his arms. He and his dad nodded. It was clear she appreciated the acceptance from her two boys. That's great. Kira perked up at your reaction. She was clearly grateful for your approval as well. So, that's us. I'm not gonna lie, I read it as sus at first. Do you two have plans for your first day back? The only thing I have to do is pick up Liz later tonight before we head back to our hotel room.
Great.
He suddenly looked over his shoulder, his eyebrows pushed together. I'm glad you're here, but I just remembered that I was in the middle of cooking something. Only a small cackle escaped you while you fought off the giant grin taking over your face. Meanwhile, Cove erupted into laughter that had his dad shaking his head. Listen, if I have the average streamer brain, does that mean I was born for streaming? Streaming. But we're gonna ignore that. That's fine, Dad. Go salvage what you can. I think it'd be nice to explore the old neighborhood for a while anyway, since we've got the time. Cove directed the last part to you as he spoke, hoping that you'd want to go with him. Of course. Fucking what kind of question is that? You nodded automatically. You were already looking forward to it. That's a perfect idea.
Makes sense.
I think so too. You should go enjoy the day. I'll hang back here so I won't be a third wheel, and someone's gotta keep an eye on Cliff before he catches the whole kitchen on fire. Mom, you're not a third wheel. Cove stiffly stuck his arms against his side like a little child. A small smirk tugged at Kira's mouth. She winked. You know what I mean. Have a good walk. I'm going to... I'll see you both later. Cheerily, Mr. Holden waved before going back to his cooking. Cove smiled warmly.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye, we'll see you soon. Cove trailed behind you as you walked into the welcoming summer sun. He stopped, closing his eyes to stretch his arms in the warm rays. I would not be able to. He's probably like foot and a half taller than me. Fuck it. I want a piggyback ride. With big, pleading eyes, you watched his lip twitch. Accepting his fate, Cove sighed affectionately. Up you go. You crashed down to the ground and you put a hand on his shoulder, giving him a thankful squeeze. Once you were settled on his back, Cove lifted you up to his full height. Oh my god! See? Streamer isn't short! Streamer isn't short, guys! Streamer isn't short! Naturally, you found yourself heading down the road towards the beach. You're what do you mean the dumb choice? Whatever. Your spirits rose high, even higher as you stroll across the sand, heading for the shopping district. Arriving, you wove past tourists who were taking in the sights for the very first time. Being a local was a badge of honor you wore proudly. You casually walked past the shops. Over the years, some had closed down, but many of the stalls were still exactly the same as they were when you were little. Is the crepe still, fucking stall still there? Oh. Ko snapped his head as far as it could go to one side, so dramatically you couldn't have missed it. Something clearly caught his eye, but you couldn't see it.
Please?
There's a pretzel stand open today. Can we get one? Oh my god. I don't want. I'm not that small. Listen. Being small is an advantage. I can't think of anything right now, but I'll get back to you on it. When his gaze found you again, he wore the biggest smile. You chuckled. Yeah, you don't need to ask for my permission. Does your heart want a pretzel? Yep, it does. For a moment, you both quietly laughed at that. You placed a hand over your own heart. Then I think you should follow it. You're gonna get the one that comes with the little frosting cup, aren't you? That's right. After that, you both happily made your way over, being pulled in faster by the delicious aroma of the stall. With that, you changed course to the pretzel stand for a snack break. Cove was very pleased by the morsel he picked up, and that was good to see. The sun arched across the sky as you went up and down the road as a pair. By the time you returned to the beach, day was beginning to fade into night. Cove kicked his shoes off, tossing them into the sand. He wanted to get his feet wet in the waves as fast as possible. Yes, okay. Yes. I have perfect access to a knee straight to the balls. What can I say? In seconds, you had your feet free and your shoes abandoned in the sand. You kept going until you were ankle deep in the water. Contentedly, you followed his line of sight to the setting sun, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. It really feels like summer now. He wore a bent smile when he turned to you. The light illuminated like a halo behind him, and the sight took your breath away. In fact, it's hard to think of anything that feels more perfectly summer than moments exactly like this. Being here at sunset in Sunset Bird with you. Aw. I'm so glad that we were able to come back for a visit. You hummed in agreement. Your heart fluttered the moment you met Cove's eyes. Your mouth lifted into a pleased smile. Yeah. You crossed your arms. Cove looked up from the sand, meeting your gaze with a bent smile. It's inevitable. Cove murmured quietly, losing himself in his thoughts again. Shortly after, you saw his hand shoot down into the sand. He stood straight back up with a lopsided smile and got to work brushing the sand off his prize. You knew without a single word, Cove found a new shell for your collection. As you wandered down the beach, Cove followed at your side in comfortable silence. Your shadows stretched across the sand like they were leading the way. What? What? Where did Thanos come from? What? The only noise you could hear were the soft footfalls of your feet and the waves gently rocking into the shore. For a moment in time, it felt like there were only the two of you in your own little world. Eventually, the bubble popped when you realized that your phone was going off. It was Ma, hoping that you were going to be back soon. Curious, Cove's eyes slid down to your phone. You let your hand fall back down to your side. You held the phone pressed against the palm of your hand. It's Ma. She wants to know when we'll be there. It's inevitable. Oh my god. Cove scratched the back of his neck and shook his head. His mouth twitched like he just had a funny thought. Oh god. Dang, parents always trying to make us come home before it gets too dark. Aw. It's like we warped back into being little kids the moment we set foot at the entrance sign. Cove's nose crinkled in fake disgust, and you both burst into a fit of giggles. It'd be nice not to have to worry about bills again. Sometimes. After one last glance, you put your phone away again. Cove gave a small shrug. Ready?
Yep.
Let's go. Together you left the beach, feeling the call of home pulling you forward. The both of you ran off towards your mom's house, leaving the waves behind, but welcoming the beginning of summer. Cove and you ran up from the beach, sand flying from your steps. Cove made it to the road first, but you managed to catch up to him by the time you reached the house. It wasn't exactly a race, and yet it also wasn't not a competition. Both of you were laughing by the time you bumbled through your old front door together. You inhaled deeply and shouted loud enough to be heard anywhere in the house. We're here! Your moms were seated in the living room. Their eyes sparkled as they locked on you and your light dusting of sand.
Hello.
Welcome home. Mom leaned forward, eyebrows raised at your, jubilant? We'll go with that. Entrance. Ma sighed wistfully.
Aww.
That brings back memories. Wow. Yup. That's pretty depressing, but yeah, just debt until the day you die. Cove chuckled shyly as he scratched the back of his head. I hope we're not too late. Nope, you're just in time. But you better start packing it up. Liz will be waiting. Also, I just realized, is that just like the shadow of her hair, or is that like a scar? I think that's this piece of hair here. I don't know. Anyways, Ma nodded as she stood up from her seat. She lightly ran her fingers over her clothes to smooth out the wrinkles. It took you a second to remember where you would put your stuff. You needed to get it all in the car so you could get everything back to your hotel. Can I help? You shrugged and directed him to your bags. With Cove, your mom's, and yourself on the job, it only took one trip to the car to get everything. Cove firmly closed the trunk, and you thanked everyone for the assistance. Of course, kiddo. Come along, Cloudon family. Let's get in the car. That means you too, Cove. You know you're essentially family anyways. Thanks. Exactly. Well said, Cloud. Cove climbed into the backseat with a decidedly touched expression on his face. You got in on the other side. When everyone was situated and buckled, the engine was started and Ma pulled out onto the street. You couldn't help but feel amused to be stuck in the backseat with Cove. Your mom's driving you around. It really was like you were little kids again. Cove caught you staring at him and gave you a bent smile. He was probably on the same wavelength as you from the sheer mischief in it. There was some light chatting on the drive. No one brought up anything too deep, and it mostly became swapping jokey stories. The entire trip was marked by a heavy sense of anticipation. Everyone was ecstatic to see Liz and hear what she had been up to. When you neared the airport, Mom pulled out her phone to call Liz. Ma followed the signs to the correct pickup area and asked for you to shout if you saw your sister. Yeah, Liz, we're at Wing B. There's a blue sign that says North America.
Alright.
Tell her that we're right in front of the building with the blue windows. She says that she's outside, right by a yellow truck. I see at least 3 yellow trucks. I think they're doing work at the airport. The back and forth continued, with Ma driving around in the wide, circular airport road while Mom attempted coordination between her and Liz's location. Aha! You leaned forward, peering out at the front of the car. A tall, poised silhouette pulled a pale purple roll-along suitcase behind her. It was definitely Liz. She waved to the car. Ma parked along the sidewalk next to her, and Mom put her phone away with a cheer. Mission accomplished, team! Ma excitedly reached over to grasp Mom's hand, thrilled that both of her kids were back.
Good job.
That's right. Liz came closer and yanked open the back door beside her. She popped her head into the car, her smile ornery despite... Hang on. What does that mean? Ornery. It makes me think of, like, ornery. Oh, wait. Hang on. Is that how you spell it? Wait. Ornery. Okay, well, it means bad-tempered and combative. Or stubborn. Well. Liz came closer and yanked open the back door beside her. Oh, wait, that's right. It must have been a long trip for her, yet her expression was that same familiar smirk that you had grown up with.
Hey.
Hello, children, I'm back. Ah, Liz! Liz! Cloud! Hug. You quickly unbuckled, then launched yourself at your sister. She wrapped her arms around you and you squeezed. Well, hi to you too, kiddo. Hello, sweetie. It's so nice that you're here. Hi, Elizabeth. He jokingly huffed at her. We're not children. Whatever you say, baby boy. She turned her gaze back to Mom and Ma. You really know how to make someone feel appreciated. Her spirits were high. You could tell she was just as happy to be here as everyone was to see her. She left the door open but ducked out to walk around to the back of the car. She opened the trunk and lifted her luggage in. I'm gonna move your junk, Cloud. I'll keep it in front of my bag so you can get it later. Ma's dropping you off first, right? Yes, but... Yes, but that's not junk. It's important. Liz slammed the trunk closed without responding. Liz swung around to open the door. You noticed that her hair had a few flyaways, no doubt from a long day of traveling. She leaned against the frame of the car, giving you and Kova a significant look. I am not sitting in the middle. I already had 5 hours of that nightmare on the flight. There's no way I'm getting in between the two of you. I mean, really, who would ever want to be the... who would ever want to be the person pulling Cove Holden and Cloud Cloudron apart? Cove puffed up indignantly, yet again at her classic tease of your relationship. Liz continued along like she didn't notice.
So?
I don't care how you decide who's scooting. I figure you can find it out somehow. I'll sit in the middle. Oh, okay, never mind. He's sitting in the middle. Cove glanced over at you and shrugged. He unbuckled his seatbelt and moved to the middle. Thanks, Cove. No problem. I'm almost disappointed it was so easy. I meant it when I said we weren't children anymore. It's just the middle seat. Liz shrugged, not losing any of her smugness. Keep telling yourself that, and I'll keep taking the window seat. With the window seat open, Liz squished herself into the car and shut the door. When everyone was settled, Ma began to pull out.
Let's go.
We're off! Liz crossed her legs, compacting herself slightly. She braced most of her weight on the door behind her. On the door behind her instead of sitting up straight. It gave her a little more room. By date, yes. By actual time, no. Because even if the date says one person is in 2022 and the other's in 2023, it's still happening at the same exact time. So technically, no. If you want my official answer. But it is fun to think, oh my god, future. Hopefully we finish the journey. This car is almost as old as we are.
Now.
And it's still just as good as you are. Hi, I love this old car. You had spent hours there, sitting in that very seat. It taken you in so many different places. The car had good times, bad times, and so much in between. You really hoped that it kept running. It'd be bizarre if the car was ever sold. Aw, Cloud. How touching. Mom turned up the radio as Mom merged onto the highway. The station was familiar, the normal soundtrack for when she had driven you and Liz around town. Liz bounced in her seat, enjoying the classic tune. The song would be old enough to vote at this point if it was a person. That was hard to believe. And now you're... oh god. With Liz, the conversation livened up despite it getting later and later in the night. She told you all about her week and all the travel preparations she made. By the time she'd made it to the actual tale of travel itself, Liz started chuckling. On the plane, Liz had sat next to a couple of girls who had talked a lot about how well they could read people. Liz recounted their conversation with her in hilarious detail, as they had apparently tried to guess her occupation after only shaking her hand. Neither of the girls could agree with one another, and Liz had refused to just tell them. Like, what? Because I'm awesome. That's why. Boom. Comfort streamer, guys. That's me. Best streamer ever. However, the drive to your hotel was only so long. Eventually, your group arrived. You yawned and got out of the car when it stopped. Also, okay, sorry. That made me think of stream tomorrow, and I'm remembering to set my alarm so I can get up at 3 a.m. and stream. I'll set my alarm for 2:40 a.m. There we go. Cove clambered out after you. Liz gave a loud sigh of relief at all the extra space she found herself with. Tomorrow is going to be the Beating the Ender Dragon at 3 a.m. stream. Because you guys wanted to Cloudron stream at 3 a.m. So, it's gonna be our last stream of the year. You and Cove grabbed the luggage and then waved off your family after you said your goodbyes. After they left, you and Cove went to go find your room. You scanned the keycard to unlock your hotel room. It sounded out a soft beep, and you turned the handle of the door. The door creaked open, and then you craned your head in to take a look. The first thing you noticed was the large king-size bed in the middle of the room. It was a prim, modern-looking space. It seemed clean and smelled faintly like floral air freshener. Fuck your flight, you're watching that. Oh boy. A smile played on Ko's face as he watched you take in the space. The bed's nice, huh? Bro. Like we haven't broken into each other's rooms via the window. Oh my god. Are you serious? I'm kidding! I'm just kidding. I want to share, really. Good. Ko let out a breath in relief that he'd been holding on to. I got a good hotel, didn't I? It's passable. Yeah. See, because I don't know if this is, like, joking or not. Ko smiled like a big, pleased puppy. You and Cove continued to chat as you settled in. You unpacked some of your stuff and checked out all the room's amenities. Cove pointed out the mini-fridge and started puzzling over what food could be ordered to the room. However, the fact was, you were both exhausted. It didn't take too many yawns before you both changed into your pajamas and called it a day. It looks rich. You had to hunt along the wall to locate the light switch. When you finally found it, you flicked it off with a sense of triumph. You turned your head over to Cove, who stood behind you in his pajamas. He was cozy and comfortable, but the pieces didn't match. He never minded that. We should get some sleep. Cove smiled, a soft expression that was adorable.
Alright.
Okay, let's go to sleep. Despite saying it was bedtime, Cove took a step forward towards you. He wrapped his arms around your back and you leaned into his embrace. Then he lifted you off your feet. Oh lord. What? Still not putting you down, Cove promptly dropped himself backwards. The both of you crashed onto the tight tucked sheets of the hotel bed. He laughed the entire time. Cove bounced on the landing and absorbed most of the impact. You laid on his chest, feeling a little jostled. You're an absolute Yeah. You shook your head jokingly. His laughter turned into a snort. He smiled up at the ceiling, a thought clearly crystallizing. My dad used to do that kind of thing to me when I was little, sort of. Nostalgia was clear in his voice. It was a fond memory, and you felt something warm in your chest. You made a small noise of understanding that turned into a yawn. When Cove yawned in return, you pulled at the sheets until you were actually under the blankets. Hey, so do you know why pigeons are called pigeons when they're actually what? That is so Cove blinked at your random tangent. You yawned and continued talking, your sleepy brain happy to info dump. Pigeon actually used to refer to a young sheeping bird, not a species like it does now. Cove nodded along as you continued, seeming interested despite the random topic. By the time you finished, he was watching you intently. Sleepy good. He found it to be charming if the soft look on his face was any indication. Cove wrapped his arms around you and snuggled next to you. He let out a contented breath. You reached out to hold Cove under one arm and then used your other hand to comb through his hair. The two of you relaxed into one another, and you knew neither of you would want to be anywhere else. I can't believe we're really here. You and Liz and everyone else are going to be here in Sunset Bird again. I was staring at all the scenery going by while we were driving here, and it honestly felt like we never left. He ran a hand down his face. I mean, in some ways it feels like it's been ages and everything's different. Some of that is definitely because I'm staying at a hotel instead of being in my room at Dad's, but yeah. Hi. IRL Blaze has stopped by to say hello, guys. Oh, you okay, bud? Wait, what are the options? Cove nodded. He understood completely. A yawn forced an interruption into the statement. Cove was undeterred. I'm looking forward to this. He tucked his head into your neck. You felt his lashes flutter close against your skin. Same here.
See you tomorrow.
His words were a whisper you barely heard. It might not have even been that exactly. You might have just been guessing. Cove always had a habit of mumbling. It was okay either way, whether you heard it or only thought you heard. The sentiment was true regardless. Cove would see you tomorrow when he opened his eyes and the sunlight returned to your hometown of Sunset Bird. You comfortably drifted off to sleep and eagerly awaited seeing Cove tomorrow as well. Your eyes gently opened to see a dim, unfamiliar ceiling. You recalled where you were, a hotel room. Yawning, your muscles felt relaxed and warm enough that sleep threatened to pull you under again. Morning. Cove's voice brought you back to consciousness. The heat made sense now. You knew that comfortable weight against you was your boyfriend. His arm was draped around you. His fingers were lightly drawing shapes on your pajamas. You twisted over to face him fully. Morning. Did you sleep well? I did. The expression on his face softened with a content sigh. You felt his index finger lightly trace out the shape of a heart. There's nothing but good dreams when you're around. Aw. Squeeze. Pulling him closer, you hooked your chin in the warm space between his shoulder and his neck. Cove nestled his cheek into your hair, holding you in return. By the way, I'm using my keyboard to choose the options now because my other hand, which is usually on my mouse, is occupied petting cat, so... Neither of you were making any moves to get up and actually start the day. It was sweet and comfortable to be wrapped up in Cove. You could indulge just a little while longer. Eventually, enough time flew by that there really weren't any minutes to spare. There were too many people waiting, so you both crawled out of the sheets together. Standing up, Cove took a few seconds to stretch. He glanced over at you with an animated expression. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to your mom's anniversary dinner tonight. It's gonna be fun. I think so too. This whole trip is great, actually. Being here with everybody is like having another chance at being a kid. We can do all the stuff we used to, and all the things we never did but wanted to. The world is our oyster. Jumping up on the bed, you stood in a power stance in the center. We run the course of our lives. We're in control of our destinies. Exactly. Well, we better get back to it, huh? We've got a pretty full schedule ahead of us for your mom's big day. He smirked. So much for being a kid, so many responsibilities. I don't think seeing our friends really counts as responsibilities, Cloud. I think it does, but... After that, you and Cove moved around each other, busily getting dressed and ready for the day. Light laughter and chatter filled the air the entire time. Bags were packed and phones were sought after. Jesus. You somehow lost a single sock. Cove caught it with a noisy slap in between his two hands. He stared over at you with wide eyes. Shrugging, you tried not to grin, but it was a losing battle. Remind me to remind you not to do that again. I'll walk over to get it next time. Worried still, he wiped off the phone screen on his shirt. You chuckled in agreement, knowing full well that you both would likely forget and play catch with the phones again at some point later.
Hi, bud. Are you sleepy?
There was nothing else stopping either of you now. In minutes, you were hopping into your ride and heading back to the neighborhood. It was another beautiful summer day in Sunset Bird. You couldn't resist rolling the window down so you could absorb it all during the drive. Cove sat across the seat from you, near the opposite window. His gaze was locked outside, catching all the old landmarks the vehicle was passing.
Hi. What, do you want to come up in my lap? You want to sit? Yeah. Oh, no, you don't? Okay.
Okay. Your spirits rose even higher the moment you made it home once more. Eager, you hopped out of the car and let yourself inside. Your moms knew you were going to be there that morning. But the second you made it past the threshold, an excited scream nearly scared you out of your shoes. Is it Lee? Oh my god, I love her! Oh my gosh! Look at her! Cloud, you're here! And guess what? I'm here too! While your heart rate settled, a broad grin quickly took over your whole face. Since your cousin moved out on her own, you noticed that she really found her own groove. She was still the same loving person she'd always been on the inside, but she expressed herself in new ways. Lee was strong, kind, and smart. Over the past few years, she graduated college with a degree in history. Though you last heard, she was pursuing her dreams, working towards getting into the music industry. Lee! Excited, you shouted just as loud as she did. Lee hugged you tightly, nearly knocking you off your feet. Lee leaned to the side to glance past you and meet Ko's eye. The grin on her face widened while she waved. Hi, Ko! Hey, nice to see you, Lee. I got in practically at dawn. It was a whole thing, but at least I made it here alive. Lee exhaled and slumped her shoulders to emphasize how exhausting the ordeal was. Behind her, Liz made her way over. She crossed her arms at the seam. I'm here too, in case you were wondering. I love your dress. Nope. The peep popped loudly. You watched Liz's narrowing stare at your teasing. The demure smile on her face didn't change. You can't just say hello, wait. You can't just say, hello, nice to see you, or you miss me like a normal sibling, can you? Can't you greet us? Bleh. Can't you greet us like a normal Let's make you to get water. Can't you greet us like a normal person, Lizzie? Jeez, what a tough crowd. Still the same old Cloud. I'm glad you're home. Another friendly shout rang out in the living room. It was as cheery as it ever was from the many times you'd heard it over the years. Good morning, family! Your parents both came out from the side hall together. Morning.
Well?
Now that everyone is here, I do have a little something to mention. Ma put her hand lovingly over her wife's. Mom leaned her head into Ma's with matching affection. We're all still having dinner tonight, but Pam here actually made plans to take me out to brunch to celebrate our anniversary. Just the two of us. Please, she hooked an arm around Ma's waist. Sorry to push you out, but I'm sure this group of mature grown-ups will be able to entertain themselves for an afternoon. We don't need to find a babysitter or anything.
Totally.
Yeah. Have fun, moms. Don't worry about it. We can survive that easy. Enjoy your brunch. This works out, actually. An afternoon open means there's time to meet up with Terry and Randy. Hopefully they're free today. Your two school friends still lived out around the area. They knew you were coming for your mom's party, but when or how you might arrange to see each other wasn't set in stone.
Sounds good.
Definitely. We should call them. What? No!
Alright.
Okay. Listen. I have some people I'd like to say hi to as well. Liz had her cell phone in hand, ready to get her plans made before she was even done speaking. Arching an eyebrow, she then directed the next part at Lee. Well, you want to come along? We've missed out on a lot of cousin bonding time in the past.
Yeah!
I'd love to! It'd be an honor to hang out with you, Liz. I hope we both have fun. Don't worry, fun is my specialty. Chuckling, Liz smirked. We'll try not to have all the fun. Don't get into too much trouble. You shook your head and Liz winked. She then glanced back at her phone and rapidly typed a new text. Excellent. It's settled. She squeezed her wife's hand. Her gaze took in the whole room, ecstatic to have the house full again. Today is going to be perfect.
Yes.
I think so too. I truly couldn't be happier with my wife, my children, and our whole beautiful family. It's already a wonderful anniversary. There were all some sweet comments from the group gathered around the couple of the hour. Seeing how your moms were, you couldn't help but hope that when you got to be their age, that you could be as proud of your life as them. But Ma's attention then fell on you, and the look on her face twisted mischievously. A shiver shot down your spine. This is a very good time of year for a marriage, don't you think so? Oh my gosh. With snickers, all eyes eagerly slid over to you and Cove. Shocked at her implication, his cheeks burned red. There was no missing the meaning in Ma's words. She was as clear as a bell and she knew it. Okay, wait. Your mind leapt to the plan you'd been creating. You had been making moves in that direction. You wondered if Cove agreed with Ma's words. You'd been hopefully waiting for him to ask. Your mind leapt to those words. It wasn't something you'd planned on, but maybe she was right. But you stared straight ahead, trying to conceal the marriage thoughts spinning in your head. The last thing you wanted was to pressure him into acting before he was ready. You caught Cove shyly rubbing at the slate scar that was still visible on his arm. His stuttering never quite reached full sentences. instead turned into silence. Cove's brain was shutting down. Ma had sympathy for him.
There.
You don't have to say anything. It's just a little thing to ponder. At that, Cove's mouth snapped shut. With a stiff nod, he creakily glanced at you. If it was only the two of you here, you got the impression he would have had something to say. For now, a meaningful look was all there was. Right then, let's get back to what we were doing. After that, you enthusiastically began setting up plans to meet up with your friends. They were both able to come see you, having kept their schedules free for this, and you couldn't wait. Yeah, he might be. You're right about that. Hang on, I need to mute for a second. Okay, hopefully that's better. Cove was also speedily sending text messages. Since you conveyed the plans to Terry and Randy, you imagined that he was letting his parents know about what he was going to be up to. The group continued to chat and catch up until it was time for your mom's brunch and your big meetup with your friends. Soon enough, everyone was out the door looking forward to their fun-filled afternoons and the dinner later that night. Once outside on the neighborhood street, you looked at Cove. He stood at your side with a bent smile. Terry and Randy were driving into town while you and Cove were traveling on foot to meet them at an easier to reach spot. Man, we really are kids in Sunset Bird again, having to rely on other people who actually have cars to really get anywhere. Now we're stuck walking to whatever is nearby. We never drive anyway. Cove rolled his eyes, landing them on you amusedly. Fine, you're right, I do like walking. Let's go. You bounced forward several steps and shot Cove a playful look over your shoulder. With that, the two of you began your trip down the old road. It was a casual stroll into town, and before you knew it, you were at one of the large parking lots in Sunset Bird. It was the one that used to have the little crepe stall! Remembering the delicious smell, you got lost in thought. The store did well enough that it moved into a full-size building a couple of years ago. You'd seen the pictures. It was very cute. The parking lot was now just, well, an empty lot the cars could theoretically park in. Not many took the offer. Cole pulled out his phone, texting Terry and Randy in a group chat to let them know you'd made it. Someone must have answered already because Cove gave you a status update while still staring at the screen. Randy texted, "I can see you." Yeah! Alright. The blare of a car horn cut you off. You and Cove both turned towards the source of the noise. One of the windows rolled down.
Hey, buddies.
Yo! Your friends had arrived, making a spectacle of it, as expected. Being the only car meant that they got the pick of the lot, so they pulled to a stop in front of you. The window closed back up, and instead, the two front doors popped open. Terry and Miranda stepped out onto the pavement. Hi, Cove. Hi, Cloud. Miranda, I love you. Terry? With a cheery wave, Miranda skipped towards you. Terry, on the other hand, walked speedily over to Cove, squeezing him into a hug. A quiet laugh escaped Cove, along with the majority of the air in his lungs. He didn't fight the constriction, but instead gave Terry's back a pat with a large grin spreading across his face. Terry! Let's go! When you let Cove go, Terry came right up to you. He held his fist up for you to bump it. Yeah. Terry nodded sagely. You wiggled your fingers as an added hello. Gobble, Cloud. It felt so nice to have your friend group reunited as adults. Terry was currently a full-time lifeguard down at the busier beach of a town over. You were proud of him. He'd helped a lot of people in his line of work. And in recent years, you and Terry were able to form an even closer bond. It was reassuring to have a friend who knew what it was like to go through changing parts of their identity. You could go to him for understanding, and you knew that Terry felt the same about you. Miranda took Cove's hand and one of yours in her other. Her eyes alight, she gave you both a gentle squeeze.
So great.
I'm so happy to see you again. Hi, Terry. Hi, Miranda. He answered assuredly. It was clear that he was equally glad to see them. This reunion was long awaited. For a while, Miranda had been working hard as an assistant at a school while continuing her own education. She also kept busy running a small online shop selling crafted knickknacks she made. You look so cute. Ah, stop that! The pink in her cheeks deepened at your compliment. I mean it! You knew how full Miranda's plate had been for a while now, but despite the busy schedule, she really did take the time to put together a fantastic look. Miranda released her hands. Giggling, she eyed you both carefully. So, how have you been?
It's nice.
Things have been nice. I've been doing well.
That's cool.
I'm really glad. Miranda put her hands behind her back sweetly, leaning forward just a smidge. Of course, everybody already knew you'd be a success. What about you? I'm super. Terry sidled up to Miranda and put his arm around her shoulder. Sighing dreamily, Randy chuckled up at her boyfriend. Yeah, things have been unbelievable. He pressed his cheek against Miranda's, and she let out a light squeak. The sight put an amused grin on your face. Your friends made a wonderful couple. They knew each other well and cared about each other so much. It was no shock at all when you heard the news that they'd started dating. The corner of your mouth curled playfully while you took in the warm welcomes all around. At times, it was still kind of funny how your group of 4 friends evolved into 2 couples. Not that you were complaining about it, you thought it was an amazing thing. Cove then pulled his phone out and peeked at the screen. He repeated the motion every so often. You raised a curious eyebrow at his unusual behavior. Cove was too focused on whatever he was doing to even notice you noticing him, which was even stranger.
So...
Is there anything either of you want to do while we're here? Any place you'd want to see? I'd be up for a lot of things, but actually, there is something I want to do right here. Oh yeah? What's this? Terry poked at Cove's arm playfully. Miranda met your eye, silently asking if you had any idea what Cove was talking about. You shrugged. I just want to see my friends. Huh. Cove, you're already doing that. True, but I could be doing it even more. You, Terry, and Miranda all turned to Cove with identical, incredulous expressions. His stare moved to a point past you 3, and you heard the scrape of sand and gravel underfoot. Oh? Someone else stepped into the parking lot. Startled, you jumped at the call of a warm voice shouting over. Okay, my bet is Derek.
Sup, guys?
It's Derek! Let's go! Running a hand through his hair, the person who crossed the lot was unmistakably Derek, Suarez? He was beaming the whole way. It's been too long, even though it hasn't actually been that long, but long enough. He was comforting and solid, but he was also big enough that it was hard to fit him in your arms. You could feel the rumble of his laughter against your cheek. Derek held you in return.
I missed you.
Why is his voice so deep? He spoke to you gently. You were thrilled at just being there, reunited with him. Derek was a good friend of yours, and he had been for a long time. Hey! He waved over at Terry and Miranda pleasantly. Over the years, they all had met several times in passing, simply through being friends with the same people. Sup, big man? Hi, it's great you could come. Cove put himself next to Derek. Happy, he clapped a hand on his friend's shoulder. Hi, thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Of course, thanks for inviting me. Sheepishly, Cove looked back at you and the others. That's when it clicked in your mind. It wasn't his parents that he was texting earlier, it was Derek the entire time. Derek is in town for a few months to help my dad and his dad with some work. Yep, I'm working on my own business thing too, but I'm still involved with running the scuba shop when it's called for.
Very nifty.
Humming, Derek elbowed Cove.
So?
But hey, we don't have to stand around here for my sake. What's the plan? Let's hit the town. Eager to get going, everyone piled in Terry's car. The rest of the afternoon was spent visiting spots all over Sunset Bird, laughing and reminiscing the whole way. Once it started to get late, Terry brought you and Cove back to the neighborhood. You didn't have to walk there after all. You didn't get out until promises were made to see each other again before your trip ended. Side by side, you and Cove stood in the street and waved at the car as it drove away. Terry tapped the horn for 2 honks while Miranda stuck her hand out the window to wave back. You and Derek caught in the back window, you caught Derek in the back window, giving you both a wide grin. Sighing, as soon as the car turned down another street, they were finally out of sight. Well, that was one party. Time for another. Ready to see your moms? Always. Let's keep the celebration going. You shimmied a bit, right there in the street for added emphasis. He looked at you amusedly and rolled his eyes.
Come on.
Let's go. Spirits high, you and Cove crossed the distance to your house. It was almost time for the anniversary dinner. Ma! Give me 2 seconds. You'd barely stepped over the threshold of the condo before Ma descended, eagerly welcoming you both. The usual greetings were followed by questions on everyone's well-being, after which the conversation moved on to excited chatter about tonight's dinner plans. Cove excused himself to the restroom to freshen up before being on the move again. But when he returned, you were shocked to see that he had entirely changed outfits. Where did that come from? I packed it with me so I could get dressed before the dinner without having to go back to the hotel. Didn't you? Or maybe you stole stuff here at your mom's place? No, Cove, I didn't do that.
Huh.
But your mom's party is at the country club. And that's also where Liz took golf lessons. Not everyone is there in their Sunday best. It'd be different if we were going to one of the club's parties, but we're only going for a regular meal. Cove was as befuddled by your explanation as you were with his actions. He threw his arms up, desperate for understanding.
Seriously?
How can you not dress nicely for a country club? I don't think the Cypress is as special as you've decided it is. You saw Ma, she wasn't in formal clothes, and she's one of the guests of honor. His frown wobbled and his cheeks became far pinker. He looked down at his own self regrettably as he pulled out the cuffed ends of his shirt. He seemed more like a scolded child than a grown man dressed for the latest charity gala. I thought she was gonna get changed while you and me were. Cove could only sigh, fully embarrassed. Cove's eyes stole a glance in the hall, as if he were calculating if he'd have time for another quick change. Unfortunately for him, it was not meant to be. The time to head out came far quicker than you'd expected. Mr. Holden and Kira swung by the condo to make sure everything was in order, and for your second surprise that night, Mr. Holden was also in formal clothes, like father, like son. Cove's face excitedly whipped towards yours at the same time Mr. Holden went to Kira's. The two men pointed at one another. See? He knows. Exactly, Swart. Kira was talking to me like I was crazy. The aforementioned Kira placed a hand delicately, yet dramatically across her eyes. Clifford, our son only knows this because you are the one who raised him. Mr. Holden chuckled, his arm moving to scratch at the back of his neck. Yeah, that's my boy. The ends of Cove's mouth gently bent up. He truly was his father's kid, in more ways than he even realized. They may be the only ones in the group, potentially the only guests at the entire club, all gussied up. But at least they could now take solace in one another. That looked to be good enough for them. All the Cloudron family, as well as the honorary members Cliff, Kira, and Cove, headed out at the same time to the Cypress. It was to be a perfect reunion. An impeccably smart host greeted you on arrival, smoothly leading the way to the set of tables reserved for your group. Once you'd all settled in, chosen drinks were poured into delicate glasses. The food would be coming out later, letting you soak up the atmosphere for a little longer. Smiling, your parents faced the group of familiar faces, all gathered here together to share this special day with them. Mom reached over and took Ma's hand, clasping it between both of hers.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here tonight, gang. Marrying this lady here is the best thing I've ever done, and there's no one else I'd want to celebrate that with. Yes, we're so lucky. Not only do we have each other, but we've got such a large and loving family through all of you. Around you, you heard people saying aw and chuckling appreciatively at the comment. Lee had clasped her hands tightly in front of her, her eyes shining. Your eyes met Liz's misty ones, and the affection she had for her moms carried over to you too. Ah! Oh my god! You returned your attention towards the happy couple just as they leaned in to kiss, smiling all the while. The table responded with cheers and clapping, shouts of happy anniversary and other congratulations continuing, even after they'd broken apart. Mom beamed as she watched Ma giggle dreamily. The waiters reappeared, delivering delicious plates of food, and the dinner began in earnest. Both conversation and laughter continued to flow freely as the night went on, with the two families relishing the opportunity to be together once more. Eventually, after your hunger and thirst had been fully satisfied, the plates were cleared and the event began to draw to a close. Cliff and Kira exchanged goodbyes with your family before heading out together. Cove gave his goodbyes to his parents while hanging back until your moms were ready to head off. You were getting a lift back with your moms. It was already late, so you discussed the possibility of going straight to the hotel rather than going back to the condo, but Cove had asked if they'd mind taking him back to the neighborhood. He wanted to visit a little longer. Your moms had happily agreed. Liz and Lee were feeling tired, so your mom swung by their hotels during the trip home while you and Cove made the full journey with them. Riding in the backseat of your mom's car with Cove felt more than a little nostalgic. As your eyes drifted over to him, his head resting on the window, it was hard to believe how much time had passed. Mom stretched as she got out of the car, smiling over her shoulder as she headed towards the house. Time to put my feet up. You two joining us? Cove shook his head. No thanks, it's your anniversary. You don't have to entertain me. I'll take a little walk. It's never any trouble to have you over, Cove.
You alright with that?
Let him do as he pleases, Lonnie, but you better not stay out too much later or there'll be trouble. Ma chuckled as Mom waggled a finger, her expression exaggeratingly severe as she reprised a role that, in truth, she never really played. Neither of your parents had been particularly harsh as you've grown up. Ma joined in the act. Don't go too wild just because there's no school tomorrow. Laughing, they made their way inside, leaving you standing out in the dark street with Cove. You didn't even need to ask him why. You had already had the answer for this. He wasn't yet ready for the day to end. Without a word, Cove began to stroll down the road. You walked alongside him. You know your destination long before you arrived on the dark and utterly deserted beach. There were no lights down here, nothing but the moon and the stars for illumination. The only sounds were the gentle waves rolling in and out and the soft sound of the footprints you left in the sand. Other words, it was perfect. Cove stepped out into the waves without a word. He looked up at the sky with a smile, then tucked his head down and began to pull his fancy shirt off. He tugged it over his head and lobbed it backwards, further up the beach and out of reach of the waves. Sure, I'm on the water. You followed him to where the waves began to lap at the beach and began to wade out into the water. Cove slipped his dress pants off and— what the hell? Ha! Jesus! And tossed them back in roughly the same direction as his shirt. He was down to just his polka dot boxer briefs. Sometimes you were really struck by the ways in which he was braver than his younger self. This was definitely one of those times. He never ever would have done this when you were both living on this street, but you also know he still wouldn't do it without anyone other than someone he spent all those years with. Fuck it. Cove waded further into the water until it came up to his chest. You followed Cove deeper into the sea. Your wet clothes clung to your body, soaking up the water and weighing you down, a physical reminder of all the unwritten rules you were breaking. Cove grinned as you approached. I'm gonna be in so much trouble with my moms when we get back.
I guess.
Yeah, oh well. Think fast! Oh, you motherfucker! He splashed water at you as soon as the words had left his lips, giving you no time to prepare. The splash had caught you full on, leaving you spluttering and drenched. Seeing what you were doing, Cove put his hands up for protection. It was no use. The water washed over him, leaving his hair soaked through. Cove sighed, then looked at you mournfully. The sudden shift in his mood alarmed you, but those worries disappeared as soon as he opened his mouth. We're still not merfolk. The world is cruel. You snickered. After a moment, Cove's mock sadness broke and he joined in. The two of you wound up drifting further down along the shoreline, chatting and enjoying the chance to be back on the beach that had provided the backdrop for so much of your childhood. Eventually, a silhouette of structures appeared up ahead. As you drew closer, you realized it was the old playground. Cove spotted it too and hurried towards it, dragging himself out of the water and heading into the park. Wet sand coated his feet and lower legs with every step, clinging thickly enough that it began to resemble a bizarre pair of boots. As you followed him, you wondered how many visitors this little park got these days. There were officially no children living in that neighborhood now. Cove gazed at his surroundings in wide-eyed awe. He didn't care at all that he was soaking wet and dressed in only his underwear. Crouching, he gently pushed one of the child-sized swing seats, marveling at it all.
Wow.
I can't believe how tiny everything is. Were we seriously small enough to use these? He shook his head, unable to fathom just how little you'd both been when you first met, then walked over to the monkey bars. Once these had been a challenge for you, now they were little more than waist height next to Cove. Cove turned his back to the bars and hopped up onto them with ease, sitting on them comfortably. It was strange seeing adult Cove juxtaposed with the baby playground, but you took your own place on the structure. This place had been something so exciting to Cove back when he first arrived, and apparently it was to this day. Cove smiled eagerly as you approached, kicking his feet in the air happily, briefly forgetting the low vantage point until the tip of his toe scraped along the ground. He continued to swing his feet, but with a little more care. You thought it was adorable. In this moment, you were home. It just so happened to be the place you'd grown up, but really, anywhere you could be with Cove was that for you. He had held a special place in your heart for so long, and so much of your life had been shared. You'd grown up on the same street, which had given you some common ground, but it went far beyond that. You had both chosen from a young age to share your life with each other. You wouldn't have it any other way. Here we are again. Here we are. The mood has shifted now. The funny, impulsive night beach trip with the spike of adrenaline that came from you playing in the water under the moonlight had settled into something quieter and more nostalgic. Cove leaned back, tilting his head towards the sky to admire the stars above. Too bad I wasn't able to bring my surfboard along for this. Cove shrugged dramatically, trying to lift the mood a little. The dinner was really nice. It was great to do all this. The smile he had when he spoke those words fell as quickly as it had appeared. It went by so fast. We all came out here for the party and it's over. Liz, Lee, our parents, we'll all be going back to our own things now. But what else can you do except say it's okay? I guess it's part of growing up. This place and these people, they're our foundation. It shaped who we are now, like making castles out of sand. I owe a lot to Sunset Bird. His eyes crinkled fondly, and Cove's voice was gentle when he spoke again. We had a good childhood, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. He shook his head, sighing heavily. Alright. His smile took on an uncharacteristically harsh twist. You had a feeling where this was going. You better get home before your dumb parents who don't know anything get mad. You had to laugh at the half-hearted impression of the sour kid you'd once encountered in this very park. He chuckled along with you for a moment before tapering off. I hope we don't get grounded. The jokes kept coming. It was very amusing to imagine that not only could your mom somehow ground you as a fully grown and independent adult, but that their powers extended over Cove as well. As much as you were enjoying being back here, Cove was right. You had to accept that you needed to go now. It was late, and your moms were still expecting to see you before you got a ride back to the hotel. You and Cove hopped down from the bars, landing easily with the ground only a short distance below. Before you could return, you had some clothes to retrieve from the beach. You retrod the same path, following the footprints down to the shore you'd left in the sand only a little while earlier. Once Cove had scrounged up his abandoned clothes, you start to walk up the old path home side by side. Droplets of water slipped down your skin and fell onto the road as you made your way back to your mom's house. As you and Cove were still soaked and sandy from your earlier adventure, it was likely that you were leaving quite a trail in your wake. But you'd seen Cove's bedroom growing up. It was only natural for him. The air was slightly humid, already pleasantly dense with moisture that felt like a hug as it closed around you. Any damp footsteps that were left behind would take longer to dry in this weather. The signs of your adventure might even be visible when the sun came up the next day. You hope so. You quite liked the idea of you and Cove leaving your mark on your hometown again, even if only for a little while. Despite being out late and, in Cove's case, mostly undressed, the balmy summer night prevented you from feeling any chill. You were entirely comfortable. In truth, you felt warm inside and out. The day had been so lovely, spending time with friends and family, and your eyes drifted over to Cove. Cove Holden, your boyfriend. Just seeing him brought a smile to your face. Aww. Cove turned to you, his eyes wide and adoring, and he bit his lip as he smiled shyly. You could tell that your words had touched him. I feel the same way exactly. He held your gaze a moment longer, looking straight at you as he spoke again.
I love you.
Aw. I'll love you forever. Hug. Cove squeaked, startled by the sudden embrace, but quickly warmed to it and responded by wrapping his arms around you in turn. You were full of joy. All of their concerns and the day-to-day stresses of normal life were squeezed out by it. All you could think in that moment was how your life was wonderful. Every second and every day needed to end sometime, and that time had nearly come for tonight. You had to get at least some rest and bring it all to a close. And so, the two of you went inside to say goodnight to your moms, as well as clean yourselves up the best you could. Your moms, both in pajamas ready for their own sleep, hooted with laughter as you came inside, disheveled and damp, and their teasing continued until the car came to get you to the hotel. Cove stayed silent as he put his casual clothes on again, placing the formal ones back in the bag he brought them in. You'd given Mom and Ma plenty of material for a mock scolding, and you got a playful lecture about not getting into the water without bothering to change first. You just grinned at your partner in crime, feeling like a naughty kid again. It had been worth it. By the time you and Cove finally dragged yourselves to your hotel room for the night, the sky had been dark for some time, and the lonely hotel hallways were quiet. The late hour made you feel a sense of fulfillment. You really were making the most of your trip. It was such an odd thought that this was almost over. You had settled into this new routine naturally. All the familiar streets and faces made everything easy to get used to. The two of you drowsily shuffled past an ice machine and into your room. Cove set his phone on his bedside table and you followed suit. You both started settling in for the night. The hotel room was a welcome sight after your long day. You noticed Cove rub the back of his neck and yawn. His voice was quiet and distant. I hope the pet sitter is doing good. The wish wasn't exactly directed to you. It was just a sleepy thought that Cove had unleashed upon the world at large, but you still agreed. I hope so too. Cove still kept fish after all these years, delightful, colorful things in huge aquariums. He apparently spent a lot of time watching them swim. You had not been surprised when he told you that he found someone to look after them in his absence. After all, you also found a pet sitter. You were in the same spot as Cove with your animals. With no one at your respective homes, they still needed to be cared for. Cove's anxiety about leaving them hadn't subsided. Over the vacation, you had caught him a few times, texting the pet sitter and asking about his fish. It'll be okay. Cove turned his head to you, the nervousness still coming off despite his exhaustion. I know what you mean, but you chose that person for a reason. You trust them. But they're all fine. They just miss you. Cove smiled, appreciative of your comfort. You nodded in satisfaction, mission accomplished. Cove yawned widely. He seemed confused at the magnitude of it. He groggily blinked at you. I think it's time for bed. You glanced at your watch. It really was astonishingly late. Yeah, Cove, that's an understatement. The two of you got changed and brushed your teeth. In no time at all, both of you were cozy and ready to sleep. After that, you flopped onto your side of the shared bed. Cove headed over to his side, and you felt the mattress dip under his weight. You tucked yourself under the covers, and Cove snuggled in closer to the middle. You turned on your side to face him and scooted slightly closer. Your noses almost touched, and Cove watched you with a soft expression on his face. Cove gently spoke, his words like a lullaby.
Good night.
Aw. Night. Cove's eyes fluttered shut, and he let out a contented sigh. There was a warmth from Cove's body next to you. He was right there. Oh, Jesus, now. Comforting. Your eyes felt closed sometime after. You were not sure exactly when, only the fact that they were now too heavy to open. You felt a mixture of bitter and sweet emotions. You were happy to be here, but sad it was ending. There was relief that you would soon be in your own home again, but also wondering when you could return here. There were many more feelings swirling around in your head that hadn't even crystallized into thoughts yet. Paradoxically, you felt nice but also confused, but then also nice from the confusion. In the back of your mind, you realized that you really must be tired. Unsurprisingly, your exhaustion did not give you too much time to muse on your emotions, and in what felt like seconds, you were already dreaming. Yeah, I'm not a morning person. The dreams dancing around your head became fragmented and faded until you couldn't remember a thing about them at all. You were growing more aware of the real world. Wake up on my own. Yeah. It didn't matter how much you wanted to get up, your body had other plans. Yawning, your eyelids kept drooping, getting dangerously close to sticking shut. You sat up fully with a big yawn, stretching your back, then your arms, and lastly your neck before accepting the day. God, now I'm yawning. Ah. The blanket fell to the side while you swung your legs over the side of the bed. A part of it almost got caught on your foot, but you kicked it away. Cove slipped out of the bed on the opposite side. Today would be your last day in Sunset Bird. The only thing you had planned was some family time in the old neighborhood. You figured you'd see where the day took you from there. Yawning again, you glanced over at your clothes. There was just one more day to live out of your bag. Yeah. The next several minutes passed in comfortable silence while you internally debated between two shirts. Alright, let's get things going. Our families are waiting. Nodding, you and Cove swiftly finished getting ready in the small hotel room. As soon as you had your stuff together and were ready to go, you were off. During the ride there, you and Cove decided to visit his dad's house first this time. When you got dropped off, Cove eagerly hopped out into the street with his eyes locked on his father's condo. Your gaze fell on your boyfriend. He stood in the middle of the street where you grew up together, while the summer sun made him shine. No, he was the brightest light in your eyes no matter what. Oh! You wouldn't give up a single second of your time with Cove. Meeting there, you were looking forward to how today's chapter would unfold. Cove strode up to his old front door and casually flung it open without bothering to knock once again. You followed at his side as he poked his head in. You closed the door behind you both. Hello! You found Cliff and Kira in the kitchen getting breakfast ready. Kira was cutting an apple while Cliff was washing a frying pan sizzle. Cove's parents waved from across the room, not straying from their tasks. Good morning, you two. Yeah, morning and hello to you too. I hope you slept well.
Thanks.
Thanks for swinging by. You're more than welcome to join us for breakfast here if you haven't already eaten, of course. We haven't yet, though even if we had, there's always room for more. Kira chuckled. She put down the knife she had in her hand so that all her attention could be on her son. You're still my giant, growing baby boy. Mom, please. Kira didn't pay Ko's whining any mind. Instead, she put a finger up to her lip as she thought, her eyes on you and then glimpsing towards a window.
What do you think?
I wonder, do you think your family's eaten yet, Cloud? I'm not sure. Cove and I came over here first. Your eyes flicked over to the clock on their own. Given the time, your moms may have eaten, or they could be having a slower morning. It was a coin toss either way. Well, give them a call. They could come over. Cove nodded, a sage expression on his face. Making them breakfast is the least we could do after how much food I ate at their house growing up.
Right.
True, bud. Very true. Alright. You took out your phone. Even though your moms both had cells for years, the house number was the one you had memorized as a kid and the first entry on your contacts list. As the call connected, you tapped the speaker button. You figured it would be easier if everyone could hear what was going on. You heard a click and familiar static.
Hello.
Hello, Cloud. It's nice to hear from you. Hey, Ma. Good morning. I'm across the street right now, and Co's family wanted me to invite everyone to breakfast. Do you want to come over? That sounds delightful. Pamela and I can do that. Liz and Lee should be able to make it too. Would that be fine? Cliff took a step forward and spoke loudly so that his voice would be picked up. It definitely would be. The more the merrier.
Marvelous.
We may have gone together for dinner last night, but there's no law that we can't do it again for breakfast today. Enjoy the company while you can, is what I think. Ma giggled and you could hear some rustling over the line. Thank you. I'll let them know and we'll be right over. Cliff gave a thumbs up. Cove shook his head with amusement. Ow, God. Dad just gave a thumbs up. I'm telling you, since you can't see him over the fun. Kira's snore and Ma's laughter rang out, filling the kitchen. Cliff switched the thumbs up hand to instead scratch the back of his head.
See you.
Well, it sounds like we'll see you soon. Goodbye for a little while. You could feel her smile from her voice. Bye, Ma. You ended the call with a satisfying tap of the red button. Cliff's eyes wandered around the space. We better get cooking.
Sounds good.
I can help. Me too. No way! You're guests! Kira and I have got this. She grinned. There was something playful in the twist of her lips.
Right.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Cliff. I've been in your spot before. There's no choice but to accept it. Ko sighed, but from the sparkle in his eyes, you could see that he was entertained. Fine, we'll just hang out over here, I guess. Good. Ko walked over to the living room and gestured at the couch. You both took a seat, getting a comfortable spot to wait for food and family. Ko tilted towards his parents with his chin, then shook his head with a gentle smile, silently asking if you could believe this. Excuse me. Oh my god, I'm so sorry if you could hear that. All you had was a silent shrug. Time passed, filled with late chatting. Cove kept a careful watch on his parents' culinary progress and teasingly kept a running commentary. Oh, Dad added another pinch of salt. I wonder if that was a good idea. Cliff had to raise his voice to project over the living room. He sounded very amused. It's funny that you of all people are commenting on my salt usage. We were both born and raised in salt water. Besides, I'm sure you remember back when you were about 12 and tried to make... Here, I burped. It was a very guttural burp. Cove flushed slightly, but his smile remained as bright as ever. Do you really want to start talking about cooking mistakes, Dad? Because I remember a lot of things too. Like, what about that chowder that was supposed to be a pie? Cove and his family were quite a show to listen to. He chimed in occasionally, but mostly provided the laugh track. Eventually, there was a rhythmic knock on the door.
Oh,
That's them. He said it loudly for his parents' benefit. You nodded and got up to greet your family. When you opened the door, surprisingly, there were no moms. Oh, it's them! Yeah, okay. Terry stood in front with Miranda at his side. Derek waved from behind them. Hey, buddies, we came to see you two before you left. The plan would have been to go over to Cloud's house next if you weren't here. Luckily, you two aren't too hard to find. What he said, and hi. Cove burst into happy laughter. His brows were high in surprise, not unlike how he looked after unwrapping a nice present. Wow, thanks for coming. Hello. Kira's voice carried through the house from the kitchen. Cliff likewise projected. Great, the whole gang will be here. You heard the sound of a cabinet open and shut, a pan clattered, and the faucet turned
Are
on.
we interrupting something?
My parents, sister, and cousin are coming over for breakfast. They should be here in a few minutes. Yep, but my dad always makes a ton of food anyway. It's no problem for you guys to join. Cove waved off their concerns before pausing with a thoughtful hum. The only real problem is, do we have enough places for all these people to sit? He peered back into the house and started counting the dining room table, chairs, and bar stools. 5, 6... Cliff interrupted when Cove began trying to use his fingers to connect the different chairs to different guests.
No worries.
Don't worry, some people can squish together on the sofas. It'll be fine. This really is gonna be a party. Well, I'd be happy to accept the invitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to be crazy to skip out on this.
Thanks.
Thank you for making room. We're really glad that you came. Your three friends finally piled into the house. Before they had a chance to settle in, the doorbell rang. Only Miranda had sat down.
All right.
Now that has to be them. People laughed and he walked back over to the door and opened it up. He was right this time. It was your parents, Liz and Lee, all crowded on the front steps. They squinted into the house and were surprised at just how many greetings were said. The sheer chorus of hellos was impressive.
What?
How did they beat us here? How early did Cloud call you? We're literally across the street. Terry snorted at your sister's confusion. He seemed quite pleased with himself. We were surprised. We caught ourselves.
Cool.
Very cool. Cliff smirked as he adjusted the settings on the stovetop. It's a little more crowded than expected, but we're making it work. Cove led the final group to complete the picture inside, and they took the chance to greet you along with everyone else. When the excited energy buzzing around the table started to calm, you had a second to truly appreciate this view, the most important people in your life all together again. It still felt too good to be true to have everyone here. And then, you noticed that Kira stood back up. She clapped her hands once in a satisfying smack.
Any hoosies.
I hate to interrupt, but I thought you'd want to know that the food's done cooking. Cliff crossed the floor to place a pile of silverware on the table, and then he dropped stuff on the other surfaces around the rest of the living room. When he was done, he gestured towards the food.
Okay.
The plates are in the kitchen. Serve yourselves and sit wherever you like. The guests happily formed a line, and the meal was steadily passed around. Before long, each person claimed a seat in the Holden living room area, some at the table, others on the kitchen island, and some situated at the couches. Conversations trickled across the various clusters of friends as everyone dug in. Cove finished his plate in record time with a pleased sigh. He put his fork down and surveyed the room. This is really cool. Just how we're getting to do this kind of thing. I like this too, Cove. I hope we'll be able to make this happen again. Of course, there'll always be more reasons to get the gang back together in the future. Yes, the two of you might even dare to celebrate your yearly anniversary. Every year. The smirk on Nels's face grew only wider as your moms giggled at her teasing. Ma shook her head, chuckling softer now.
Shush.
Liz, shush.
True.
Honestly, we just might. You've made a good point. It does come around every year. You should. Seriously, you deserve a big celebration for your magical day. The kids are right. You've got a lot of people who want to appreciate you. You've got to give them a chance. It's true. I know I have a lot to thank you for. There were more nods of agreement around the room, and your moms took each other's hand for support. Neither were expecting so much encouragement. We'll think about it. She'll think about it, and I'll tell Lonnie to stop thinking so hard if she doesn't agree. Pam.
Good.
Good job, Mom. Now, with that settled, let's continue to enjoy this perfect gathering. Who else is there? Hang on. I don't think I'm gonna choose this, but I just want to see who this is. Oh my god, no. Jeremy? No way. Oh my gosh. Agreed. There's a playfulness in Kira's stare as she scanned the room. She slowly placed her index finger on her chin. Now that I think of it, there's something I haven't done in a while. Eyebrows were raised at Kira's incomplete thought. She was wordlessly urged to continue. Kira didn't hesitate. Look through all the photos Cliff has here. Wouldn't that be fun for all of us? What? Mom, why would you say that? Practically all those photos are of me.
Very cute.
And that's why. Embarrassing my baby boy is just one of the perks of being a mom. Yeah, never Baxter. Much to Cove's dismay, his mom was thoroughly entertained at his outburst. She winked in your direction. Meanwhile, Cliff eagerly stood up with a wave of proud affection for his son and completely missed Akira's teasing intent.
Oh.
I think that's a great idea. Anyone else interested in the pictures?
Yeah.
I am! Lee shot her hand up before Cliff could even take a full step. Terry and Miranda snuck each other a glance before nodding with matching grins. That sounds swell.
That's fantastic.
That would be lovely, Cliff. Mom tried to hide her amusement behind her hand, but she couldn't stop the snicker that slipped out. Oh boy. I want to see him. It's been too long since I last saw Little Cove. Mr. Holden met your gaze with a soft look that told you he was thinking the same thing. I bet this will be a goldmine of entertainment. Cove buried his face in his hands and sighed slowly. his shoulders deflated in defeat. Fine, we can take a look. Everyone happy with picture time? Yay!
Fun!
Yes! They both excitedly raised a fist in victory. Smaller cheers from your friends and family worked their way around the room, and even you bounced up to your feet excitedly. Mr. Holden flipped open his faded album of physical pictures. He held it up to his face. The corners of his eyes crinkled, and though the book covered much of his face, you were certain he was smiling fondly. But he didn't keep it to himself long, laying the family album on the dining table. Excuse me. You and the rest of the party gathered around to get a peek. The first picture on the first page was Baby Cove in a cute little onesie. There were several coos and ahs from the group, and Cliff's eyes were shining with tears as he sniffled. He's grown so much. Even as a baby, you looked unimpressed. Sighing loudly, Cove crossed his arms. His pout grew worse, and it only put a wider grin on your face. He was a perfect match to the younger self captured in ink on the page. My baby boy was a very quiet child. I probably had a lot on my mind. That's never changed. What was there to think about? Snack time versus nap time? Cove scowled. Meanwhile, you and Kira couldn't help but crack up into fits of laughter. After breakfast and the photo showcase, everyone decided to stick around. Hanging around Mr. Holden's house turned into taking a walk around the neighborhood, and then for lunch, you switched over to your mom's condo. It was a really good time, enjoying each other's company, but eventually, the sun began to set, and there was nothing else to delay your friends and family from going home. Inside your mom's house, the home you had been raised in, the group was taking their time saying their goodbyes. It was tough, for you, your family, and friends. You knew what was weighing on the mood. It might be some time before you see one another again. It was a pleasure having you all here, and you're welcome to come around you're welcome to come around again, anytime. Mom wrapped an arm around Mom with a slight chuckle. Mom leaned her head gently into her wife, and they both beamed.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I know we're all adults with our own hectic lives, but we appreciate the time taken to visit. Snorting, Liz crossed her arms. She leaned one hip out to the side while her lips curled teasingly. You make it sound like this was such a struggle. Some of these people still live here, and it was a vacation for everyone else. Even so, it was very thoughtful, and I hope everyone has a safe trip home. Kira clapped a hand on Cliff's shoulder. He was puzzled as she leaned in so he could hear her. That means you too. It's dangerous crossing the street. Remember to look both ways. Hey now. Yeah. Good luck with all the important grown-up things I'm sure you'll have to do when you're all out of here. Definitely. I'll give updates next time something exciting happens, or something lame so I can vent about it. How nice. I'm glad Lee won't be forgetting the little people. Never ever. I'll keep in touch too.
Very
You better.
nice.
Well, me and Randy aren't going far, so we can keep an eye on the town for the rest of you. Nothing will get past us. Right. We'll make sure everything is okay. No need to worry at all.
Thanks.
It's kind of you. Miranda and Terry gave each other pleased smiles, already committing to their self-appointed task. Derek scratched the back of his head, wearing a pensive look. I'm always sad when I have to leave this town. It happens too often. But at least there will be people looking out for Sunset Bird. That makes me feel better about it. After a pause, Mr. Holden gave the younger folks a thumbs up.
Great.
That's all great. You've got a lot to be proud of, and a lot to be looking forward to. Well said, Cliff. I'm thankful that I've been privileged to witness the growth you've undergone over the years. You've each matured beautifully. Cove was touched by his parents' words and struggled to come up with something to follow. Yeah, it's been good seeing everyone. No one had taken a step yet, and you couldn't put this off any longer. It was time to say goodbye. Oh. See you again. And soon. Lee put her hands on her hips. Miranda and Terry gave you similar confident looks.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's gotta be a free weekend somewhere. I know it won't be everyone, but some are better than none. A calming wave of tinkles washed over you after seeing their reactions. You knew that it wouldn't have to be too long before someone made the trek out for a short visit. Afterwards, there was more sniffling and hugs, a lot of hugs. Then people started trailing out into the streets, seeing others off. Your friends and family got into their cars and left the neighborhood. By the time things had fully settled, you realized that the sun had set. Earlier, you and Cove decided on having a car pick you both up. Neither of you wanted to bother your parents after such a long day. It would be a little while longer before it would be there, though. It was the right choice, as both sets of parents shot you weird looks. The four seemed ready to call it a night. It didn't take either you or Cove very long to assure them that it was okay to head home and go to bed. With one more round of goodnight and goodbyes, your families returned to the condos. Then the only people left on the street were you and Cove. Cove closed his eyes, humming happily while he waited for it to pass. He stared up at the sky. Cove's eyes were in his pocket. Cove's hands were in his pockets, and his shoulders were relaxed when he caught your attention with a tilt of his head.
So...
Can you guess what I'm thinking? Well, at that moment, you were in the neighborhood you grew up in together with some time to spare. You rolled your shoulders back and pretended to crack a few of your knuckles. An amused look fidgeted on Cove's face while he observed you silently. Could you perhaps be thinking that the fireflies are out now?
Right.
Right. Do you want to go to the Poppy Hill before we leave? Always. There's an eager bounce in your step as you and Cove crossed over towards the hill behind your mom's house. Side by side, you stared out at the view in awe. Ah. As you imagined, the hill was dotted with the glowing firefly light. It perfectly reflected the memories of childhood held closely in your mind. Now, I'm just saying, you know, this would be a perfect place to possibly propose. We'll see. Cove sighed contentedly, seeing them across the hill, weaving in around the blades of grass and the stars above. Eventually, Cove moved his attention back to you again. There was a dazzling brightness there in his expression that quickly morphed into something more mischievous. Want to catch one? Absolutely, I do. He asked, raising a curious eyebrow, but then he didn't wait for you to respond. Cove bolted off after the first firefly that happened to dart past his nose. Oh, it's on. Kicking up a bit of dirt and leaves, you bolted in the opposite direction after a few fireflies that captured your attention. The first one that flitted into your range, you dove for it. Did you get one? It escaped between your fingers, but that didn't dim a second of your fun. You shook your head, trying to find your next target. The next one. I can feel it. Unless you're feeling my future victory. Out of the corner of your eye, you watched Cove get spun nearly around, following one that was staying just out of reach. Chuckling, you crashed down low, searching the air. The pursuit for fireflies continued until a handful had been caught. Cove crossed over to you with a bright grin that could rival every twinkling bug and star around you. Cupped between both his hands, Cove carefully held a firefly. The corners of his mouth twisted before a few giggles escaped him, and you knew that feeling well. The way the firefly would buzz around, tickling the palms of your hands. Cove's eyelids fluttered open, meeting yours. He watched you with a complicated mix of emotions, heavy with the weight of 15 years of history of memories. It's really a relief that I got to see the fireflies. This trip wouldn't have felt complete without it. Yeah, I think you're right. You spotted another firefly, lowering to your eye level before looping up to the top of Cove's head. It landed right on his hair and you smirked. What? You have a very tiny firefly hat. I do? Before you could answer, the firefly took off and disappeared into the night. You gave it a tiny wave goodbye. Well, that didn't last very long. That's too bad. I'll remember them as my tiny hat forever. Me too. Taking a deep breath, Cove held your eye. Oh. You know what? That would be cool. That would be cool, actually. Taking a deep breath, Cove held your eye. He appeared to be conflicted about what he wanted to say next, and you waited for him to make his choice. It's so strange not to live here anymore. Most of my life, neither of us were ever really away from Sunset Bird. Well, unless one of us went on a trip somewhere. Or when both our families took trips together. Remember that? He chuckled, losing himself to fond reminiscing. You couldn't help but match his grin. I like that road trip one a lot, though I don't think we could all squish into that RV again. We're way too big. Laughing, Cove shook his head. His brow creased the longer he sat with thoughts spinning in his brain. Those visits back then with my mom, I remember what a big deal they felt like then. To be away from here without anyone else coming for a whole few weeks. Oh, how little I knew. You're so innocent then. Sighing, Cove slowly shook his head. You offered him a small, reassuring smile. We were, and now we're just adults somehow. After that, Cove became quiet, simply gazing into your face. The way the lights around sparkled in his eyes reminded you of the moonlight reflecting off the waves in the ocean. There was a depth to it that you could hardly grasp. A part of you felt compelled to speak, to do something, but you were entrenched. Cove held you completely in place as much as the firefly. His next words came out as a whisper. I love fireflies. Every time I see them, it makes me happy. It makes me think of you. The lasting eye contact finally broke as Cove let his eyes shift towards the hill. Fireflies and you are linked together in my head so strongly because of all the time we've spent together with them, and because they're kind of like the feeling I have for you on the inside, made real. A soft, warm light that's fluttery and tingly all around me. He faced you. Oh no, he's crying! Why? I always make him cry! Oh, Jesus. He faced you completely once more. His eyes were now glossy and even fuller with abundant affection. Oh. Wait, Magav, you might have been wrong. Cove then opened up his hand, holding the firefly settled there towards you. He was wholeheartedly offering it to you. The significance of the gesture wasn't lost on you after he confessed what fireflies truly meant to him. Suddenly struck with emotions, the words cracked in Cove's throat. He smiled wryly and continued on.
I remember.
That night, the summer when I moved, where we all went to catch fireflies, was one of the first truly, completely, purely happy memories in Sunset Bird. Even when I had good days back then, I was so sensitive I usually ended up getting upset over something at some point. I'm guessing you can remember that. He chuckled softly at himself, and your mouth curved into a smile. Sure, Lizzie got kind of bossy near the end of the mini-adventure, but that time it didn't matter. I wanted to run around and play with you, and her, and Shiloh too. I wanted to be there. It was amazing. And it was thanks to you that I got my first firefly. There's really no one better to have done that, huh? Considering, all those things I said about how I think of fireflies. You've given me so many wonderful, heart-aching feelings. I can see the image of your face on that night clearly. Let me try that again. After some water. Hang on. I can see the image of your face on that night 15 years ago, tiny and precious, smiling at me brightly as clearly as I see you the way you are now, right in front of me in this moment. And you weren't there when it happened, but even when I got back home, to a place I didn't think was my home yet, I was still excited. I told Dad about the cool things we did, and he listened to everything I said. It all meant a lot to me. I'll never forget it. He closed his eyes, sorting through all the emotions you were certain were swirling around inside him. He had been speaking to you so familiarly, so sweetly, but then his tone became hard. It was more serious than you'd ever heard in your long history together. Cloud, I promise I'll always be there whenever you want. I mean it. I mean it more than ever. Cove. Oh. He may not have said it directly, but you had gotten the message clearer than if he had shouted it from the rooftops, and Cove knew it. Madcap, you were right! Oh my god. Aw. Cove's legs shook despite talking straight. His entire body had gone rigid. He winced while trying to force his joints to actually move. Your feet remained locked in place, churning in your own sea of emotions, giving Cove the time he needed. Aww. Ultimately, Cove graciously dropped down onto both his knees with a muted thud. His head was hung low in embarrassment as he clung onto your pants to stop from falling over entirely. Cove mumbled what you thought was an apology, though how he carried himself meant it was directed at the ground. You still couldn't move from that spot. Keeping a tight grip, he was able to awkwardly shift a leg lower, so that he was being propped up on just one knee. There was a pause. Ah! And then he looked up at you with eyes as blue and as wide as the sea, and just as wet. He released your clothes to instead put his hands over his heart. Cloud. Ah! In a small, fragile voice, he spoke.
I love you.
You mean so much to me. I don't even know what life would be without you. Tears fell heavily, and the words dropped out as painfully. I'm sorry, have I ever been able to handle a major romantic moment in our relationship well? You don't have to answer that. He laughed breathlessly. It was almost more of a wheeze. I've never made things easy, especially when growing up. Life was so hard for me, so I made things harder for everybody else. But you were always so good to me, no matter what. And I've loved you for so many years. He continued to sniffle as he made a few false continuations of intelligible stammering. Eventually, Cove found what he wanted to say next. Thank you for being my girlfriend. Thank you for all the gifts when I had to go away to my mom's house. Thank you for standing up to Lizzie when she would be mean to me. Thank you for being there to make me feel better after I got upset because my dad tried to pay you to be my friend. Thank you for defending me from Jeremy. Cove's eyelids squeezed shut in an attempt to stop himself from rambling further. Oh. Cove's outpouring of gratitude accumulated in a final piece of appreciation.
Thanks for waiting for me.
I mean, I think that, like, hang on, what did it say? this. I promise I'll always be there whenever you want. I mean it more than ever. And then he may not have said it directly, but you had gotten the message clear then. I think that's his, like, will you marry me? I think that was his proposal, like, this line. And thank you for being such a patient person. I know I kept you waiting so long. He took in a slow, controlled breath, and then, without stuttering or stopping, said the words aloud.
Will you marry me?
Let's go! It's kind of hard to take it seriously when it's Cloudron. Cove collapsed forward, catching himself with his hands before landing face first into the grass. The poppies around his face fluttered from his grand sigh of relief. Oh my god, thank you! Ah, look at him! It's the boy! Eyes filled with fresh tears, he lifted his head back up to smile at you with all the love in the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you! I know that's all I've been saying this whole time, I'm sorry, but just thank you for being here and for being the one I get to be with. Somehow, all you could think was that it was him, Cove Holden, the man you loved, and now the person you were going to marry. You never have to apologize. Then... Ah! You couldn't hold it back any longer. You launched yourself at him and knocked Cove over on impact. He laid flat on his back now. His eyes were wide, but swiftly pulled you against him, as close as he could, desperate to feel you. You leaned forward and kissed your fiancé. He kissed you back lovingly, and you could feel the smile on his face. The place where you met, where you grew together, where you fell in love, was now the place where your shared life together truly began. Your eyes drifted close to let yourself experience it, to anchor yourself in this moment and hold on for as long as possible. You, the both of you, never wanted to let go. You were certain of it. The rest of your days would be spent side by side. It was all you'd hoped for. When the swirling excitement of your new engagement relaxed back into the more familiar style of gentle comfort your relationship brought, Cove stood up. He lifted you along with him. I do have a ring, too, if you want that. It's just, you know, sentimentality. The Firefly felt better to me. Cove chuckled bashfully, picking a stray strand of grass off his pants. You were thrilled by the turn of events that unfolded here. Your dream had been for Cove to propose, and he never disappointed you. Suddenly, Cove's now wide eyes snapped to yours. How are we going to tell people? We're leaving early in the morning and it's really late now. Should we try talking before we go? Yeah, he did use the... Aw. The two of you put your heads together to come to some kind of decision for this predicament. Maybe we could try calling your mom's house phone? If they hear that, it'd mean they haven't really gone to bed yet. If they don't, they probably won't even know it rang. Calling their cell phones might wake them up, and I could do the same for my dad's house. Yeah, that could work. In sync, you and Cove dug out your cells and began to call the respective homes of your families. Cove stood to the side as his father presumably picked up. You couldn't pay attention to his words for long, as Mom answered your call next.
Hello.
Cloudron Residence, how can I help you? Hi Mom, it's me. I wanted to see if you were awake without bothering you if you'd gone to bed. Yeah, you raised such a thoughtful person. I'm impressed. She chuckled at her own comment while getting quieter. You could tell she was pulling her face away from the receiver. Lonnie, Cloud is on the phone! When she spoke again, it came in loud and clear. She's coming on over. You twisted your head to the side after hearing Cove's exclamation and saw him tap on his screen to switch things to speaker mode. Say hi, Dad and Mom. Cloud is here, and so are her moms, sort of. They're on the phone, too. You quickly followed Cove's mom and let your moms be on speaker. Hey, Cloudron family. Good evening, ladies. Hello, it's nice to hear from you. Agreed, even though it's unexpected. What's happening, kiddos? Well, the thing is, wait, I'm gonna call Liz. Pam, get your phone, you can call Lee. What? You don't have to do that. I want to, sweetie. This is news they're going to enjoy hearing, isn't it? I'm certain they won't mind. I mean...
Alright.
Hey, in that case, Kira and I could call your friends. I've got their numbers. Seriously? Of course, they've had to call me plenty of times to try reaching you whenever you misplaced your phone or forgot to charge it. Dad. Oh, that's perfect. While unexpected, having everyone on the line would make sharing the news easy. Your parents got to work, leaving the old landlines on while they used their cells to call Lee, Liz, Miranda, and Terry's apartment. And Derek respectively. Every call went through, and soon your whole main group was on the line, and they were expecting answers. There was no putting it off. I have an announcement! Oh! Now. Sure. Cove nodded with a serious expression. It's not like they can see that! That's right, I'm going to marry Cloud. Cove reached over to take your hand as a physical sign of your union, even though no one could see it. It made him feel better. The hill filled with cheers of congratulations. You heard Terry's distinctive whoop and your mom started to joyfully whisper to each other away from the receiver. Lee squealed and Kira cooed. There was no confusion or need for pause. Everyone in your life was immediately on board with your plans. Cove turned his head and beamed at you, excitement in his smile. It was coupled with a fond squeeze to your hand. You grinned back at him.
I'm so glad.
I'm so proud of you, Cove. The two of you are going to be happy. I'm sure of it. Dad. Cove sniffled, eyes wide and emotional. Yeah, I will be. Both of us will be. Kira spoke up gently.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so wonderful to my baby. I'm lucky and grateful that you're going to be part of my life forever. Well put, Kira. Cloud is a keeper for sure. Your family couldn't stay quiet for long and began to chime in. I can't believe how grown up you are, but I couldn't be happier with how it all happened. Congratulations, Cloud. You're one of the smartest cookies there are. You're making an amazing life for yourself.
Seriously?
This is totally amazing. You're seriously getting married? It's like we're real adults and all that. Yeah, it'd almost be hard to believe that my baby sister is marrying a person. You know, if Cove wasn't such an obvious choice as a husband for you. Her tone turned abnormally gentle. You're doing good. Thanks for the positive rating.
You're welcome.
Lee giggled and your mom said some chuckles. Cove stood awkwardly, not entirely sure if he or Liz was being laughed at. Your three friends had stayed silent. You believed that they were intentionally giving your families a chance to have a moment. But once they said their pieces, it didn't take long for your friends to jump into the conversation excitedly. Congratulations on the engagement! It's crazy how we're really at this point of our lives. Some days it feels like high school was yesterday.
So great.
But it's great. You both are definitely Sunset Bird's best couple. Terry added on eagerly. You are the aspiration. I'm stoked that you're gonna be official. This is a big step, but I say you've more than earned it with everything you've been through over the years. You both deserve to be with each other for the rest of your lives. Cove had appeared weepy before, but this sealed it. He cried. Everyone's words had built up and coalesced into Cove shedding the happiest tears you've seen. Thank you. These are people you cared about dearly. You cared... Yeah, yeah, like... How do they have that many phones? Like, okay, I called up Moms. Moms called Liz and Lee. That checks out. Cove called Parents, but then Parents called... Oh wait, no. Never mind, that works out actually. I was thinking of Terry and Miranda as two separate, but it said that they were in an apartment. Okay. Yeah, the fact that it's all over the phone makes it very, very funny. Good luck, kiddos. You've got a journey ahead of you. Cliff agreed with a chuckle. They've known each other for 15 years already and still haven't gotten sick of each other yet. How hard could it be making it work for the rest of their lives?
It's no trouble.
For the two of them, not difficult at all. Oh, uh-oh. My laptop just died. Oh, I can't see chat. Hang on, let me pull up chat on my phone. Yeah, it's still really funny. Agreed. Oh my god. No, I can still see chat. Okay, there we go. Hopefully that works. Yeah, you all better come for the wedding. You kidding me? I'll be the first one there. Yeah. Liz snorted through her phone. I'll be there even if you forget to send me an invitation. You don't get to escape me that easily. Wait, is that your way of inviting us? To your wedding? Why wouldn't you be invited? Oh my gosh. Cove glanced at you and shrugged. He didn't have a problem with it. It was efficient. Everyone on the call should be invited to the wedding anyway. Why am I surprised? Everyone started laughing. To your satisfaction, it seemed like they had already started planning to be guests. But ultimately, the night was growing late, and the many phone calls all had to come to an end. After goodbyes were shared, you were left with just one another again in the quiet space of the Poppy Hill. I think that was nice. Me too.
Well...
We have to go to the hotel now, huh? Yeah. You took one last look at everything around you, breathing in the summer air. The ocean salt tickled your nose. Take care of the hill for us, little fireflies. Trailing a few steps behind Cove, you looked back down at the hill. You spied your childhood home immediately. I'm grateful we could come home here and see how things are without us. It was nice.
Yeah.
It really was. With Cove right there along with you, you made your way down the hill. With the same stars above, trailing your right, your last night in Sunset Bird was closing out. You were lost deep within a dream, adrift in the current of your unconscious mind. Cove was with you even there. His presence, strong as your mind, flitted from scene to scene, the logic of the conscious world melting around you. Something jolted you from your slumber, the visions you'd constructed slipping away even as you scrambled to catch them. It had been a good dream. You opened your eyes to an unlit, unfamiliar ceiling. The darkness permeated the room so thoroughly that you were sure it was still the middle of the night. As your eyes adjusted to what little light there was to catch onto, a smiling face cozied itself right above you. There he was. Good morning, Cloud. The grin was bright enough to make it seem like maybe the sun had risen after all. Please stop being a morning person. What have you got up your sleeve today? You knew you were about to experience one of Cove Holden's plans. His expression softened at your voice, the tender affection in his gaze obvious despite the dim space. I'm gonna flick his nose. Cove scrunched his eyes closed, snorting with laughter. I'm guessing you woke me up for some reason. Are you ever gonna let me know? Well, this is our last day here. Everyone might still be asleep, but if we get up now, we can at least see the neighborhood. Do you want to? Of course.
Alright.
Cove is holding some... Good, good. Then he held out one of those hands to help you get up too. No, lift me up. You woke me up for this. Cove complied, crouching down to scoop you up before gently setting you down again. Before you could head out, you and Cove both needed to get dressed. You did so quickly. The strangeness of the hour meant that your body seemed less coordinated than usual, each article of clothing a new puzzle, but you managed it. The two of you were eventually ready to head out into the wide world. Dawn still hadn't broken when you left the hotel, yet it was easy enough to get a ride down into Sunset Bird. The journey was peaceful. You might have expected sleep to attempt to claim you once again, with the sky still so dark, but Cove's excited energy was infectious. Morning was finally starting to come over Sunset Bird as you arrived, almost like the sun itself wanted to be there to welcome you. Cove turned towards you, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. One more summer beach trip? One more summer beach trip. You laughed, nodding to reassure him, as if there was any alternative now that you were here, and he was looking at you so eagerly. Yeah, one more. You could have taken your time getting there, dawdling under the morning sun, or you could have taken the short walk at a regular pace. Run. And both of those would have been just right for some other occasion, but this time, without either of you saying a word, you and Cove set off sprinting. The two of you tore gleefully down the street towards the beach, as excited and as ungainly as the kids you'd once been. Is it? I'm assuming, yeah. I guess that there isn't any, like, you get to choose additional, like things, like, with other 3 stages. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of relieved about that. You were laughing with joy and at the absurdity of it all, being here at the break of dawn with the boy who you'd once discovered on the nearby hill, who never completely grew up. As it was still early, you did your best to keep the noise down. To the side, you saw Cove covering his mouth to stifle his own giggles, similarly aware of the people sleeping in the condos around you. You thought of what the mean old not-grandparents would have said if they could see you now. All you could do was continue running and stumbling down towards the beach, away from the residences and their sleeping occupants. It was only a few minutes before you arrived at the expansive ocean shore. Cove kicked off his shoes and strode right into the water, not stopping until his feet were entirely submerged and the waves tickled his ankles. Into water. After slipping your shoes off, you let the sea flow over you. It was cool against your skin, but not as cold as when the wave pulled back and your wet feet were exposed to the air again. The two of you stood there, watching as the sun continued its ascent over the horizon. Silence fell between you until finally dawn had fully broken. Even then, Cove spoke in a whisper.
Wow.
I can't believe it's over. A ghost of a smile crept over Cove's face, like the sun peeking out between clouds on an overcast day. Ah. Cove reached out and enveloped your hand in his, pressing your palms together tightly. The silence returned just for a second. I'm glad we came this morning, and that we came on this whole visit back.
I'm so glad.
Oh. But more than anything, I'm glad for ending up in this town in the first place, where I got to grow up with a really nice neighbor. I wouldn't have wanted any other life. Cove looked over at you out of the corner of his eyes, not turning his face away from the sea. His expression was full of affection, from the gentle curve of his smile to his clear, contented brow. It was a stark contrast to the tears rolling down his cheeks.
I love you.
Aw. You counted yourself lucky. Even though you were leaving now, this place had gifted you with so much that you'd carry with you, wherever life might take you. The memories you'd made, the lessons you'd learned, the people you'd built relationships with, you'd keep those pieces of your life in Sunset Bird forever. You stood with Cove, silently watching as bright rays swept away the last of the night's shadows until the day truly arrived. Your spirits were high as the sun rose even higher in the sky. The two of you had found yourselves meandering back to the neighborhood street on sandy feet, strolling down the path just as you'd done thousands of times before. This was where it all started. You were compelled to look at the exact spot you'd first encountered Mr. Holden, sitting dejected on the curb. He wasn't like that anymore. Still, you couldn't forget the day it began, just as you couldn't believe what an adventure it led to. Things had never been the same since that moment, and you couldn't be happier for it. Your mental lingering on that meeting had turned physical, causing you to stop in your tracks. It was only when you heard Cove's voice calling your name that you remembered It was only when you heard Cove's name. Is that supposed to say where you were? What? That you remembered when you were and realized. I'm gonna say where. That you remembered where you were and realized what you'd done. And what a present it was. A shining sun, a clear blue sky, and Cove by your side. All the most natural things in the world. Hydrate, Chad, hydrate. So, what's the next step? You watched Cove expectantly, waiting for him to guide you forward from here. There was a crinkle around his eyes as he laughed. It's up to you now. You're giving me too much power. Aren't you worried about it going to my head? Cove smirked, shaking his head.
It's okay.
Don't worry about it. I'm listening, so go ahead. His eyes met yours, holding your gaze. I believe in you, Cloud. No matter how much time might pass, there were some things that you could count on to be constant. Cove, your family, his family, and all your other loved ones being there for you when you needed it was one of those things since the beginning and for always. Knowing they were there and you would never be truly alone made the future look all that much brighter. We should see who can reach the end of the street fastest. Fuck yeah! It wouldn't be the first time the two of you had to run that race. Hopefully it wouldn't be the last either. Cove nodded, his gaze shifting from you to roam across the little place that you'd both called home. There's still a lot there's a lot that's still out there in the world. A lot of different ways things could go in the future, but for this, I think that'd be the perfect choice. You beamed, his approval of your suggestion lifting your spirits ever higher. Your days growing up in Sunset Bird had been so wonderful, even the prospect of leaving again made your chest ache, yet you weren't going to let that stop you. It would be hard, but you knew that it would still be there waiting, whenever you wanted to return. Facing Cove, who had been at your side through it all, you knew that one day you'd look back on these moments now, just as fondly as you reminisced about your childhood growing up here. Each happy moment you experienced became only a memory of what used to be, but that was what life was, and it was okay. As it was from the beginning, and continuing that way for always, life took another step forward. There we go! Thank you for beginning a life here. Oh, God. Wait, did I miss one? Uh-oh. Oh! Okay, that was just credits. Oops. Ah! Hello again. Oh, no, thank you. Oh. There we go! That's it! That was it, chat! Damn. I would be down for playing the wedding DLC if I wasn't already feeling my voice getting very, very exhausted. But 2.5 hours, I think that's, yeah, pretty good. Yeah, for once, finally, I was like, oh, Lord. But, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Again, this is a wonderful game here. I'm gonna move chat back to its... Oh, that's not chat box. What the fuck? There we go. Do it a year from now? It's... Okay. It's an incredible game, but a horrible game to stream. That's what I think. Just because it's so long. And, like, that's a good thing, because it has a lot of content. And, like, you can, like, really, like, bond with the characters. But also, if you're, like, reading everything, which is just the best thing to do if you are streaming it, as any, like, visual novel, really, it's so long. Looks at the 6-hour-long stream for part 2. But yeah. If any of you ever want to play this game, yeah, this is free on Steam. It does have DLCs, but, like, the majority of... I say the majority. All of the base game is free. So the only thing you have to pay for is the DLC, if you wanted to buy that. Yeah, it could be worse, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it a lot. All the characters are lovable. Even, like, Baxter and Jeremy. Yeah, oh my god. That... Yeah, no. See, okay, I could do that if it wasn't all in one stream. Like, I was planning to do, like... Because I first started, and I was like, okay, I'll do a stage of stream. 4 streams. That seems enough. But yeah, I really like everything, how it's so, like, LGBTQ friendly. 48 hours, good lord. I have to get, like, God, what is it? Like, not translate, but I have to get a computer to read it for me. And also, the neurodivergency, Autistic Cove, let's go! Thank you for the meow. It was nice. It was nice. But I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna go eat some lunch. Again, tomorrow. That's almost in 12 hours. That's 14 hours from now, chat, I'm gonna be streaming again. Wait. Oh, I didn't even think about... Ooh, that's gonna be fun. Yeah, see ya. Alright, I'm gonna go. See you back up. I will be back at 3. Oh, Lord, this is gonna be something. Alright, thank you for sticking around and for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye!